subscribe, like the video, and, if possible, join Patreon. But if you don't have much money, you can support the channel by watching the novels on euroaudiobooks.com. Remember that you can participate in the polls so that your favorite novel gets published for free.
Qianye said nothing. Even if she doesn't look for her now, she should take good care of herself and don't die prematurely. Decades later, Rukia entered the Spiritual Arts Academy, and the sisters were naturally reunited. But even if she knew the truth, she wouldn't stop looking. Now, she is spending energy and money to search hard, just to comfort herself and make up for her mistakes as much as possible. Ding. Host rejects the captain, chooses to enjoy life, and is hung over at Qianye Pavilion to watch the most beautiful dance. Trigger achievement. Who knows how to mess up better than me? Host Ryatsu breaks through to level 40, and Zanpakutō's Shurikai ability is further developed to perfection. Ryatsu, level 40. Zanpakutō Shurikai's abilities are perfectly developed. Kuchiki Qianye's eyes lit up, and he nodded with satisfaction. After bidding farewell to Hijin, we went directly to an empty practice venue under Qianye Pavilion. In front of him was a vast expanse of vastness. The ground was hundreds of meters high, and there were various hills and cliffs. This is a one-to-one replica of the underground base built by Urahara and Yuruchi in the original work. Kuchiki Qianye thought. A tang hung dao with black and red lines and a golden handle, which looked cold and sharp, appeared in his hand. This knife, usually it can only be placed in the system space, is so sharp that no scabbard can accommodate it. Now, in the air, Kuchiki Qianye wave a knife gently without feeling any resistance. Any smallest air particles are cut off without any obstruction. This represents the most ultimate sharpness in the world. At the same time, Kuchiki Qianye Ryatsu suddenly released a powerful force that soared to the sky, making everything surrender. The surrounding hills and cliffs all cracked and shattered. A huge dark crack was revealed. Ryatsu alone is enough to defeat opponents below the vice-captain level. Ryatsu finally reached level 40. Kuchiki Qianye clenched his fists and smiled slightly. This is the result of not liberating Zanpakutō himself. Once Zanpakutō is liberated, it will be improved tenfold. Ryatsu, the higher the level, the harder it is to improve. Correspondingly, the gold content will be higher. From level 40 to level 50 Ryatsu. Each level of Ryatsu is comparable to the previous 5 levels. The farther to the back, the bigger the gap becomes. A cliff-like gap. In Shurikai, Bankai, it can increase the strength 5 times or even 10 times. Now, the average captain, Ryatsu, is only at level 20 or 30. Bankai's improved Ryatsu can bring their Ryatsu to over level 40. After all, the plot has not even started yet, and some captains have not been promoted. When a main plot begins, the captains of Godai 13 will experience a new transformation in strength through various plots. Especially in the later stages of the plot, Ryatsu at level 20 or 30 is the level of a high-level soldier. Zanpakutō's Shurikai also reached the level of perfection. Kuchiki Qianye thought in his heart. Zanpakutō, the quality determines the lower limit, but the user's level of development determines the upper limit. After all, even Kaika Suigetsu and Raijin Jaka, the strongest Zanpakutō of a certain series, cannot display their due strength in the hands of an ordinary Shinigami. It still depends on the development process. A powerful user, coupled with a powerful Zanpakutō, can bring out the most perfect combat power. And myself, now, Shurikai, who breaks all the world, has been developed to perfection. Shurikai, destroy the world, destroy everything. 025, come out and fight me. Boom. Shurikai starts, a huge sword energy that is unparalleled and cannot be caught by the naked eye spreads crazily in all directions. Subsequently, huge mountains collapsed, cliffs disappeared, and even the ground sank suddenly. Unable to resist the extreme sharpness, it was cut crazily and turned into the tiniest dust. Everything was silent. Kill and destroy. Within a kilometer range of Kuchiki Qianye, crack, crack, the sound of space shattering sounded like a shattered mirror. As far as the eye can see, there are dark holes and dense space, cracks everywhere. From it comes a terrifying attraction that tears everything apart, and everything will be shattered. Seen from above, the ground is pitch black for a kilometer. A huge hole was exposed, and all the dust was sucked into the space cracks and then disappeared. After a while, the mammoth Ryatsu slowly dispersed, and the sharp sword light also gradually dissipated. Kuchiki Qianye looked around him. It was pitch black, and he was trapped thousands of meters above the ground. All objects with a radius of thousands of meters disappeared and were swallowed up by the cracks in space. With the blessing of all things in the sky, neither the sword light nor the cracks in space can cause the slightest harm to Kuchiki Qianye. Good. Kuchiki Qianye nodded with satisfaction. Then Shunpa started and returned to the ground. Shurikai's world breaks everything. It can instantly kill all enemies within a kilometer radius. The extremely sharp blades are overwhelming. This is a large-scale AoE attack. Any living being will be crushed to pieces or exiled to the cracks in space. And Kuchiki Qianye, continues Shurikai. Huge spiritual power crazily poured into the blade, and black and red lines surged crazily at the edge of the blade. Finally, it turned into a dazzling white color. Between heaven and earth, white light filled the air everywhere. Without any movement, the surrounding space collapsed, leaving behind a dark and slender space slash. The sharpness is 100 times better than before. 1,000 times. Now, perfect after Shurikai, Kuchiki Qianye is capable of destroying everything except large-scale destruction. You can also concentrate all your power on the blade to exert the most powerful destructive power. No material can resist this sharpness. Kuchiki Qianye put away everything in the world. Get out of the underground. Return to Qianye Pavilion in the private room. After ringing the bell, a large group of beauties suddenly swarmed over and greeted Kuchiki Qianye. His expression was full of flattery. Then play music, then dance. Now, outside Qianye Pavilion, people were coming and going, and the scene was very lively. But not far away, a tall and burly man wearing a tattered death tyrant outfit with a ferocious demeanor, holding a serrated Zanpakutō. A man carrying a pink-haired little girl walked over quietly, a whole body of momentum. It looks like a fierce dragon and a ferocious beast, making people shudder. More, Zaraki Kenpachi. Countless people were trembling. Their lips were blue and purple from fright, and they ran away tremblingly. Zaraki Kenpachi's evil reputation has resounded throughout Rukongai. The heads of the people he killed could be piled up into a hill. This man is simply a lunatic. Whenever he hears the whereabouts of a strong man, he is like a shark smelling blood, and he will be there in an instant, then challenge them directly and unreasonably. The strong men of Qianye Pavilion. Zaraki Kenpachi actually has his mindset on Kuchiki Qianye. Rukongai. Everyone stayed away from Kenpachi, talking a lot, and looking nervously at Zaraki Kenpachi, who was standing at the door of Qianye Pavilion. Now, who doesn't know? Kuchiki Qianye took the sword from Yamamoto Genrisai and gained captain-level combat power. Today, Zaraki Kenpachi, the most evil and powerful one in Rukongai, faces off against the heir of the Kuchiki family, Kuchiki Qianye. It's definitely another earth-shattering battle. Now, Rukongai people of all sizes gathered in the distance, watching the field from a distance. Inside Qianye Pavilion, I feel a strong and restrained Ryatsu. Kairaku Shunsui put down his wine glass and narrowed his eyes slightly. Muguruma Kinsei on the side also quickly wiped the lip marks on his face. He looked outside Qianye Pavilion with sharp eyes. Zaraki Kenpachi, Muguruma Kinsei, spoke solemnly. Godai 13, the strong man who has been paying attention to Rukongai. If you can be recognized by the captain, Yamamoto Jinryusai Shigekuni, you will be absorbed into Godai 13. Successfully cleared. Before, Uno Hanaretsu is the most successful case. And recently, Zaraki Kenpachi's momentum overwhelmed everyone. He is also the focus of Godai 13, Rukongai's most dazzling powerhouse. Kuchiki Qianye, come out and fight me. Zaraki Kenpachi looked at the luxuriously decorated Qianye pavilion in front of him, with an excited smile on his lips. His instincts were unerring, can accurately distinguish the aura of the strong. 3 people, 3 powerful Ryatsu. Upstairs, although the momentum in the box was extremely restrained, it was like a black hole with no bottom, and it was impossible to measure the intensity. Today, but we can have a good fight. 026. Power and speed double a Berserker Qianye pavilion. Above in the box. Singing and dancing bring peace and joy. Suddenly, a huge, ferocious, and violent Ryatsu rushed toward him. The dancing girls screamed in surprise. Their steps were disordered, and large drops of cold sweat flowed from their foreheads. They're just ordinary workers. This kind of Ryatsu has surpassed their knowledge. Master Qianye, do you want to contact the Kuchiki family and Godiai 13? Feijin looked worried. Under the pressure of the huge Ryatsu, her breathing became a little short. That was a strong man she had never seen before. Although she knew that Kuchiki Qianye was also a captain, but she still couldn't help but worry about him. No need. Kuchiki Qianye shook his head slightly and looked down. I saw a tall man with a ferocious face and a pitted Zanpakutō in his hand. There's also a pink-haired child on his back, Kusajishi Ichiro. Zaraki Kenpachi, in the original work. Captain of the 11th Squadron. Power speed, AA Berserker. He is also the only character who can become the captain without being able to Bankai, or even Shurkai. A mad genius who lives for fighting and is obsessed with fighting. His desire for fighting is even stronger than Uno Hana Retsu. Only fighting is the source of happiness. And he becomes stronger when he is strong. The more intense the battle, the more his potential will be stimulated. He is a simple and passionate man. But after defeating Uno Hana Retsu, in order to pursue the excitement of fighting, Zaraki Kenpachi took the initiative to seal his own strength and tied bells to his hair. And he also asked Kuratsuchi Mayuri to make him an eye patch that sealed Ryatsu, suppressing his strength as much as possible. But even so, his strength is one of the strongest among the captains. But it hurts. Every time Zaraki Kenpachi became stronger, he sacrificed his companions. Thousands of years of bloody war. After killing Uno Hana Retsu, Shurkai was awakened, and by sacrificing Kusajishi Ichiro, Bankai was awakened. Zanpakutō Nomi has the strongest physics department. But, although it has great strength, his own record is not very good, and he has not become a decisive fighting force. So is criticized wildly by comic fans. This point in time, Zaraki Kenpachi has not yet joined Godiai 13 and is still wandering around Rukongai. Hearing his reputation, he was eager to fight, and naturally he would not miss the opportunity to fight against him. Now, in front of Qianye Pavilion, Zaraki Kenpachi's massive Ryatsu poured out, causing the civilians of Rukongai to suffer even from a distance. There were big drops of sweat on his forehead, and his eyes were filled with panic. Zaraki Kenpachi, what are you doing? Take Ryatsu back. A deep male voice sounded. A man with short silver hair and a resolute face slowly walked out of Qianye Pavilion. Muguruma Kensei looked at Zaraki Kenpachi with great solemnity. This madman who only knows how to fight. Don't you know that a Ryatsu that is too huge will have an impact on other people? If he hadn't taken action against civilians, Muguruma Kensei would have drawn his sword long ago. Behind, Kairaku Shunsui walked out lazily, his unshaven face full of decadence, as if he didn't care about anything. That's Muguruma Kensei, captain of the 9th Division. This is a real big shot. And Kairaku Shunsui, captain of Division 8. Far away, the onlookers were talking a lot, even though they couldn't stand up due to Ryatsu's oppression. But he still kept an eye on the details on the field. The 2 captains, plus Zaraki Kenpachi, and the eldest son of the Kuchiki family. Qianye Pavilion is particularly lively today. Are you the captain? Zaraki Kenpachi grinned, turning a deaf ear to Muguruma Kensei's words. The whole body of Ryatsu is actually stronger and The momentum is extremely violent. Then you should be able to resist a few more knives. It would be nice to have some appetizers before the main course starts. Zaraki Kenpachi threw Kusajishi Yichiro far away, pulled out the jagged Zanpakutō, and his whole body was full of fighting spirit, like a fierce dragon and beast. Ah, appetizers! Mugiuruma Kensei's face was as dark as the bottom of a pot, and the corners of his mouth twitched slightly. Today, I will let you know the price of arrogance. Brush! Zaraki Kenpachi's figure disappeared instantly, and a harsh wind howled in the air. Ding! The sound of gold and iron clashing sounded. The two fierce figures exuded huge spiritual power, and the air became faintly distorted. Mugiuruma Kensei's pupils contracted violently. Large drops of cold sweat flowed from his forehead, and the muscles of the arm holding Zanpakutō tightened and trembled crazily. Subsequently, two figures crisscrossed each other, and there were knife shadows invisible to the naked eye everywhere. The scattered Ryatsu broke the trees in half, and the earth revealed dark and deep cracks. The destructive power is extremely shocking. Not long after, a figure flew out upside down and was firmly caught by the pink Yuri's uncle. Now, Mugiuruma Kensei's body was covered with slash marks, and he looked bloody and miserable. His hands were empty, and Zanpakutō had been beaten to nowhere. Kairaku Shunsui looked at Zaraki Kenpachi below, his eyes narrowed. This Zaraki Kenpachi already has the strength of a top captain. 027. Shirkai. God breaks everything. Captain defeated. The onlookers were shocked, and their scalps went numb. Looking at Kenpachi standing majestically in the field, with only two insignificant slash marks on his chest, and Mugiuruma Kensei, who was extremely miserable, he took a deep breath. Horrible. Captain of Godai, 13. In Soul Society, he is already an extremely strong man, but can such a strong man not be able to resist Zaraki Kenpachi? Is this the caliber of a man who stands at the top of Rakangai? I heard that Kuchiki Qianye is also captain level. I wonder how far he can achieve it. Mugiuruma Kensei is so miserable. No matter how strong Kuchiki Qianye is, he won't be much better than the captain. Everyone was talking, shaking their heads, and sighing. At the same time, I'm even more impressed by the power of Zaraki Kenpachi. Kenpachi, Kensei, Kairaku, Shunsui, the huge Ryatsu of several people, made it extremely difficult for them to breathe. Kuchiki Qianye, come out and fight me. Zaraki Kenpachi casually held the knife on his shoulder. His white fang was like the sharp teeth of a tiger, and his whole body was extremely ferocious and violent. Ryatsu seems to have turned into substance, as thick as a mountain, pouring crazily in all directions. Looking forward to further battles. Kairaku Shunsui, on the other hand, briefly helped Mugiuruma Kensei take care of his injuries and let out a breath. His face relaxed a little. Fortunately, it just looks miserable, not a particularly serious injury. Kairaku Shunsui murmured softly. It seems Zaraki Kenpachi just wants to fight and find a strong person to fight with. He didn't directly kill people. Except for Ryatsu's disturbance, he also didn't attack civilians. Damn, that Kenpachi. Mugiuruma Kensei also opened his eyes, and the stinging pain on his body told him the fact of defeat. Looking at Zaraki Kenpachi, he gritted his teeth. His Zanpakutō doesn't even have a shirkai, but his strength and speed are simply astonishing. This time, he just came here purely for Kuchiki Qianye. Kuchiki Qianye, can you withstand it? There was a little worry in Mugiuruma Kensei's eyes. Kuchiki Qianye is not an easy person either. Kairaku Shunsui returned to his indifferent expression and grinned. After all, even the captain couldn't fully test Kuchiki Qianye's strength. He sat down casually on the grass with an expression on his face. Mugiuruma Kensei on the side has a dark look on his face, but this Kairaku Shunsui is really good at picking things up. If you don't come out, I will go in to find you. After a while, no one responded. Zaraki Kenpachi curled his lips. Dragging the knife, I wanted to walk into Qianye Pavilion. The blade of the knife made a stabbing sound on the ground, leaving a long and deep mark. Even the zigzag-shaped broken Zanpakutō, with sheer power, can bring out the strength of other Shurikai, even Bankai. Next moment, Zaraki Kenpachi's pupils shrank slightly, and his body suddenly froze. A handsome young man wearing a floral shirt, a sun hat, and holding a bottle of strong liquor appeared in front of him. He looks bohemian, a complete playboy, and not threatening at all. But in the perception of Zaraki Kenpachi, the handsome young man in front of him was like a sleeping hidden dragon with a restrained edge. It was like an unfathomable abyss with no end in sight, only a numbing darkness. Kuchiki Qianye. Zaraki Kenpachi's muscles tensed up, and he held Zanpakutō across his chest. He did not look down on the boy in front of him because of his appearance. At the same time, a burst of hot energy and blood ignited his whole body. Ryatsu rose further, and all the surrounding trees and rocks collapsed. The whole person's momentum has reached its peak state. If gods stand in the way, they will kill gods. If they stand in the way of Buddha, they will kill Buddha. As long as you have one breath left, you can keep fighting and fight unremittingly. But the only thing that responded to him was a beam of sword light that was like the tilt of the Milky Way, condensed with billions of sharp cold lights. Shurikai, destroy the world, destroy everything. Caused by the light of the sword, everything in the world will be destroyed. As far as the eye can see, it was all white with a flash of dazzling blood suddenly appearing. Everyone present could not open their eyes. They only felt that their skin was stinging like crazy, as if there were hundreds of millions of tiny steel needles grinding against their skin. Sharp, ultimate, invincible, the sword's light turned into a thin line, leaving only the most primitive sharpness. Nothing could be stopped. Everything must be cut in half. Not long after, the sharpness soaring into the sky slowly dissipated. The world returns to tranquility. Ding, the Zanpakutō, which was full of saw teeth and scarred, fell into two halves and fell to the ground, making a crisp sound. The port is as smooth as a mirror, as if it has been washed by hundreds of millions of 10,000 years of river water, and any particles have been cut off. Puff! A tall figure spit out a mouthful of blood and then fell heavily to the ground. The blood flowed slowly like a stream. They form a small lake on the ground. Before, the giant Ryatsu, who looked like a ferocious beast, disappeared without a trace, leaving no trace of his strength. There is only one body left, lying quietly on the ground, telling everyone the failure of Zaraki Kenpachi. Kuchiki Qianye. Defeat the enemy with one sword. 028. Muguruma Kensei has become a unit of measurement of combat power. Aizen. A girl's voice sounded. Kusajishi Yichiro, who had pink hair and looked like a child, ran over in panic with a worried look on his face. Tears gathered in his eyes. Everyone looks towards Zaraki Kenpachi. I saw a huge slash on his chest, and all the flesh and bones disappeared. You can even see the granulation and internal organs inside. Normal people, there is absolutely no chance of surviving such an injury. However, Zaraki Kenpachi's chest is still rising slightly, and he's obviously still breathing some. Shock, sluggish, scalp numbness. Everyone was stunned. Their mouths were opened wide enough to hold an egg. They were rubbing their hair and staring at the scene. Kuchiki Qianye and I remained calm, taking a sip of wine and yawning lazily. It was as if everything had nothing to do with him. Impossible. Do not believe. Zaraki Kenpachi, who defeated the captain, was killed instantly with a knife. Instant kill. Is this Kuchiki Qianye's true strength? Even the strongest Rakangai is no match for him. You know, Muguruma Kensei, the true captain, was defeated by Zaraki Kenpachi. Crowds of people gathered around, staring at the indifferent Kuchiki Qianye in front of the Qianye pavilion. His eyes were full of awe and envy. Originally, blocking Captain Yamamoto's Shurikai sword was something even a captain could do. It can only be said that Kuchiki Qianye definitely has captain-level strength. Even so, he can be called a genius, an unprecedented genius. But now, Kuchiki Qianye has proved with his own strength that his strength is not limited to the captain. Already surpassed the captain. That knife. Kairaku Shunsui, who was sitting on grass, lost his laziness and looked at Kuchiki Qianye with a solemn expression. Then he sighed, as expected of the captain's valued successor. How much strength does he hide? Anyone with eyesight can see it. Kuchiki Qianye defeated Zaraki Kenpachi with one blow. Although he used Shurikai, it was definitely not his full strength. Quick! This battle is really too fast. Muguruma Kensei on the side was silent, his face as black as the bottom of a pot, and his forehead was covered with black lines. Although the wounds on his body stung, it still couldn't compare to the coolness in his heart. Especially the onlookers. Muguruma Kensei, the captain has been defeated. Kuchiki Qianye's strength surpasses the captain. What's the situation? Muguruma Kensei has become a unit of measurement for combat power? Has it become Kuchiki Qianye's background? Think of this. The corners of Muguruma Kensei's mouth twitched slightly, and his body was twisted like a prawn. It was as embarrassing as eating devil's pepper, and my face turned red. I just want to escape from here as soon as possible. This sad place. I lost. In front of Qianye Pavilion, the tall and burly man lay on the ground, breathing heavily and his chest heaving. Zaraki Kenpachi's face was not depressed, but his eyes were filled with high spirits. No matter how serious the injury is, nothing can destroy his fighting spirit. On the contrary, it made him even more excited, although the wound on his chest showed no signs of getting better, and a sharp breath was constantly destroying the rebirth of his flesh and blood. But, thanks to his tenacious vitality, the wound did not worsen. That sword of yours is very strong. Zaraki Kenpachi grinned, and Kusajishi Yachiro walked back and forth beside him, hurriedly bandaging him to stop the bleeding. Very busy. That sword was the most amazing sword he had ever seen. It gave up everything, leaving only the ultimate sharpness. Even the flesh and blood on his chest was swallowed up by the space crack opened by the sword light and disappeared without a trace. That's Zanpakutō that can cut through space. The strongest Shinigami for millennia has always been there. If you have time, go and discuss with him. Don't disturb my rest. Kuchiki Qianye looked at Zaraki Kenpachi's fighting spirit in front of him and understood his thoughts instantly. This Kenpachi, he is born for fighting and has a simple and straightforward mind. One who pursues a hardy battle has no other ambitions. This time I came to challenge because I just heard about my reputation and simply wanted to have a fight. So, there is no need to kill him directly, just teach him a lesson. In the original work, Zaraki Kenpachi is a berserker who becomes stronger when faced with the strong. As long as he can't be killed with a single blow, his potential can be stimulated and his strength will continue to improve. Apart from the main characters, he is also the most annoying character. If you don't drop him instantly at the beginning, you will definitely be in a tough battle. But now, he regards himself as his future target. How can this be done? Every day, there's a tall and strong man pestering me to fight. Just thinking about it makes my scalp numb. How can I still drink and have fun and enjoy life? Hear the words of Kuchiki Qianye. The atmosphere in the air was stagnant, and there was no words for a moment. Especially Zaraki Kenpachi, his eyes widened, as if he had opened the door to the new world. Yes, the strongest Shinigami in millennia has always been there. Yamamoto Jinrosai. He is also recognized as the strongest person in the entire Soul Society. And myself. Before, didn't you just want to find an opponent who could surpass yourself or bring you the pleasure of fighting? Why did you ignore Mr. Yamamoto? 029, you are so brave, you dare to swing a knife at the old man. Thank you. Thank you. Zaraki Kenpachi is grateful from the bottom of his heart. What this Kuchiki Qianye said was so enlightening that he found his future goal. Although, Kuchiki Qianye is very strong. I don't know his true strength at all. Even he himself was killed by a knife. But, no matter how strong he is still just a boy. How can he possibly compare to the captain? Captain Yamamoto, who has the most brilliant record in Soul Society. You shouldn't back down just because your opponent is too strong. Yamamoto Jinryusai Shigekuni is his future goal. Looking at the high-spirited Zaraki Kenpachi, Kuchiki Qianye nodded with satisfaction. Children can be taught. Then walked directly into Qianye Pavilion. Feijin came over with a worried look on her face and was relieved when she saw that Kuchiki Qianye was indeed unharmed. Qianye Pavilion. Peace and comfort were restored. Then play music, then dance. Bring me the century-old wine and playing cards that were brought from this world yesterday. Aizen, don't be too paranoid and really go find Captain Yamamoto. Looking at Kuchiki Qianye's leaving figure, Kusajishi Yachiro's mouth bulged, and he said seriously, "That is the strongest Shinigami in 1,000 years, and the current Aiken is definitely no match for him. If you want to find an opponent, you still have to find someone whose strength is similar to yours." Zaraki Kenpachi just nodded slightly, and anyone could see that he had a perfunctory attitude. He was so enlightened that he could not listen to any advice. Not far away, Kayaraka Shunsui touched his unshaven chin and smiled interestingly. This Kuchiki Qianye, he was really afraid of trouble and kicked the ball directly to Mr. Yamamoto. Really, Captain Yamamoto always makes people subconsciously ignore him. In Soul Society, no matter how talented he is, no matter how bloodthirsty and battle-hungry a lunatic he is, he will subconsciously ignore him. I never thought of fighting him. After all, Jinryusai has been deified. He is the undisputed ceiling of Shinigami, making people unable to think of fighting at all. But this Zaraki Kenpachi is the purest fighting maniac I have ever seen. The corners of Kayaraku Shunsui's lips curled up slightly. Maybe he really dared to swing a knife at the old man. A few days later, Soul Society. The battle at Rukongai Qianye Pavilion has already been rumored. Everyone, it's all clear. Zaraki Kenpachi defeated Division 9, Captain Muguruma Kensei, then lost to Kuchiki Qianye and was defeated with a crushing attitude. As soon as this news came out, it immediately caused a shock in the entire Soul Society. It seems like this. Previously, they thought that Kuchiki Qianye's captain-level combat power in blocking Jinryusai's sword was still underestimated. The strength of Kuchiki Qianye already surpassed the captain. This is the essence of the first genius of Soul Society. Suddenly, whether it's Suriidei or Rukongai, the security around Qianye Pavilion is simply better than Central 46. The guests at Qianye Pavilion were extremely well-behaved and did not dare to cause trouble at all. Now, go to I-13 headquarters. Boom! The huge waves of flames flowed freely like a vast ocean, burning half of the sky red. A charred figure flew out quickly with black smoke, and then hit the wall heavily, leaving a large human-shaped hole. Zaraki Kenpachi closed his eyes tightly, exhaled a puff of smoke, and passed out. Zaraki Kenpachi, you are so brave. You actually dare to challenge the captain? Kayaraka Shunsui was watching the show. He clicked his tongue with a smile. Hirako Shinji, Uno Hanaretsu, Muguruma Kensei, and others also looked at the charred and miserable Zaraki Kenpachi with speechless expressions. Shake his head slightly. I silently admired his courage. Originally, Zaraki Kenpachi, who joined Godiai 13 a few days ago, even killed the captain of Team 11 on his first day on the job. As a result, he was promoted and became the current captain. But if you are so stubborn, you have to challenge the captain. Isn't this asking for abuse? But Zaraki Kenpachi's strength and Ryatsu are simply terrifying. Even without Shurkai and Bankai, his combat prowess is one of the best among captains. Hirako Shinji, on the side, looked at Zaraki Kenpachi and shook his head slightly. So, how strong is Kuchiki Qianye, who defeated him? Kuchiki Qianye, only one stab was fired. Kayaraku Shunsui chuckled, and Uno Hanaretsu on the side pinched the handle of a knife, feeling a strong impulse in his heart. The urge to fight Kuchiki Qianye. Hirako Shinji, Muguruma Kensei, all remained silent. Originally, how come you become a leader when you're a good captain? Muguruma Kensei, in particular, has tragically become a unit of measurement for combat power in everyone's eyes. Not far away, Yamamoto Jinryusai Shigekuni looked at Zaraki Kenpachi lying on ground. The muscles of his naked upper body were tangled, and there were old scars everywhere. In hand, Raijin Jaka, who was able to burn everything and evaporate the entire Soul Society, turned into a crutch again. Zaraki Kenpachi. The potential is endless. As long as he doesn't die instantly, he can keep getting stronger. And Kuchiki Qianye, who could defeat Kenpachi easily. Yamamoto Jinryusai Shigekuni narrowed his eyes slightly. He must seize the opportunity. It would be a pity that such a talent is not included in Godiai 13:030. Tonight is the decisive moment. At the same time, Kuchiki family, Kuchiki Jinling and Kuchiki Aojuan, and Byakuya Kuchiki, who practices sword-wielding in the garden. Everyone heard the news. Everything that happened in Rukongai was like a dream, pushing Kuchiki Qianye's reputation and talent to a whole new level. Kuchiki Qianye, now more powerful than the captain. Defeat Zaraki Kenpachi. As expected of my son, Kuchiki Aochuan laughed loudly, and his already weak body straightened up a lot. Recently, he also met at the Godiai 13 headquarters Zaraki Kenpachi, who killed the current Kenpachi when he first arrived and became the captain of the 11th Division. That man, just like wild beasts, they are endlessly killing and ferocious. His strength is at the top level among captains. But Kuchiki Qianye actually killed them all? When did he become so strong? Kuchiki Jinling also smiled and nodded. Such a surprise. It's like pie in the sky. Equivalent to, I originally thought that Kuchiki Qianye was a piece of gold, but I didn't expect that the gold was wrapped with a more precious jade. Kuchiki Qianye drinks flower wine and cooks it every day. Is there any problem? No problem at all. As long as the strength is in place, he can do whatever he wants. Byakuya on the side had sweat on his face, a strong sense of unwillingness, and a deep sense of exhaustion in his heart. The hand that wields the knife has slowed down, and the Taoist mind is unsteady. Practice hard on your own. Until now, I have almost mastered Shirkai, and I am still far away from Bankai. What is going on with my brother? Could it be that, as he said, you could become stronger just by lying down? Byakuya Kuchiki began to doubt life, but Qianye still refused to take over as captain of his 6th Division. Kuchiki Silverling shook his head. He is old and has reached the point of retirement. Kuchiki Sojin is physically weak and unable to assume the responsibility of captain. In the past 2 days, he also went to Qianye Pavilion once, and only saw Kuchiki Qianye lying there drinking. Enjoys singing and dancing. Through his family, he also bought poker and other strange skills in this world. All day long, besides drinking, I play poker with the girls. It's so decadent. Refusing to take over as captain of the 6th Division was simply as decisive as possible. Father, don't worry. With Qianye's abilities, he could be the captain easily. Kuchiki Angshan coughed lightly and comforted his father. Kuchiki Jinling also nodded. Anyway, when Kuchiki Qianye changes his mind, he could be the captain of whichever team he wants. Even the position of captain. It's not impossible. Then wait another 10 years. If Qianye still doesn't agree, pass it on to Byakuya. Kuchiki Yinling looked at Byakuya Kuchiki with satisfaction, who was practicing alone in the courtyard. Actually, Byakuya's level is also at the top level. He mastered Shirkai at a young age, which is also in the history of the Kuchiki family. One of the most outstanding juniors. It's just that Kuchiki Qianye is too pervert. Byakuya can always only be a younger brother in front of him. Tsunayashiro family. A middle-aged man with a strong build, full of nobility, and the aura of being in a high position all year round. Now, he was frowning and staring at Tsunayashiro Tokinada, who was wrapped in gauze on the bed. Half a month has passed. Tokinada still hasn't recovered. Half of his talent for the rest of his life has been wasted. Today, start taking action. Tokinada, father will never let you swallow this bad breath. Tsunayashiro's head said softly. Tokinada's face was twisted on the bed. and his eyes were full of pleasure. He has a broken arm. For Kuchiki Qianye, I wish I could eat his flesh and drink his blood. Take a good rest. Tsunayashiro left the room and looked up at the blue sky. News from Rakangai. It's not a secret. Now, Kuchiki Qianye's strength surpasses that of the captain and is unfathomable. Only the most perfect plan can kill him with one strike. The head of the Tsunayashiro family shook his head slightly, with a cold light in his sharp eyes, and he was determined to kill. The family has already used its financial resources. Tonight, it's the decisive moment. Now, Qianye Pavilion. Kuchiki Qianye is lying on a large sofa covered in dazzling silks and satins, and a variety of expensive drinks, snacks, fruits are placed on the table. Drinking wine lazily. Beside, then there were several girls in maid outfits, gently massaging their shoulders. There was a fight with Fei Jun and the other girls in charge of her. The era of Shinigami. It is not the modern era of the previous life. Smartphones, computers, etc. have not yet developed, and the current entertainment items are only non-intelligent things like poker. If you want to play computers and various 3A masterpieces from previous generations, you have to wait another 100 years. But these are enough. King Jia, Kuchiki Qianye, slammed down the last 2 cards and declared his victory. Ding. Host plays poker with the ladies and enjoys life. Host's white hits level has been raised to captain level. 031. Space Channel. Ajuches. White hits. Captain level. Kuchiki Qianye smiled slightly. Previously, my white hits were at elite level, comparable to that of a vice captain. Now he's been directly promoted to captain level. In Soul Society, Zanpakutō, that is Kidō, white hits, Shunpa, Kid, constitute the strength of a Shinigami. Most people focus on practicing Kidō, Zanpakutō Shurikai, and Bankai. Put most of your energy into that. There are many cases of serious partiality. But by training white hits and Kid to the ultimate level, you can also display combat power comparable to, or even surpassing that of the captain. Shihoin Yoruchi's white hits level in the main line has reached the captain level. He is also one of the beings with the strongest white hits level in the original work. As for Aizen, Kid is so powerful that no one can challenge him, and it is also his main attack method. After all, Kaika Suigetsu is the strongest Zanpakutō in the illusion system. There is no offensive ability comparable to Raijin Jaka or Tensai Zangetsu. Most of the people Aizen can rely on are Kid, but his strength only came from the serious Kid, and he did not break through it and develop forbidden technique abilities such as the Yin Yang Wind Curse. Full of limitations. Very good. Kuchiki Qianye nodded with satisfaction, and his body felt extremely light and full of explosive power. Just squeeze your fist at will, and you can make a bang-bang sound of compressed air. There is nothing better than a strong hand to split a skull. Increased level of white hits. The most intuitive thing is the substantial improvement in physical fitness. At the same time, there are also nerve reflex speed, combat experience, etc., all aspects of transformation. Come on, keep fighting. After getting familiar with the sudden increase in strength in his body, Kuchiki Qianye lazily took out his new poker and looked at the girls in front of him. No, if we don't fight, we will lose all our salary if we fight again. Several girls wanted to cry, but had no tears. My boss looked shaky and had drank a lot, but his card-playing skills were like those of a god. Played all night. They never went around. Kuchiki Qianye didn't force it, waved his hand, and threw 2 grapes into his mouth casually. Phasian. In front of him, he reported to him Qianye Pavilion's income and management bills during this period. Time flies. Qianye Pavilion. It was already late at night, but the lights are still bright and full of luxury and grandeur. The guests have left one after another, and Qianye Pavilion has also reached a rare moment of leisure. Kuchiki Qianye lay casually on the fur, shaking a glass of strong wine in his hand, and the only sounds left in his ears were the girls singing. But not a single insect chirp could be heard from the outside world. It was completely silent, leaving only the tranquil night. Today is such a quiet day. Kuchiki Qianye smiled slightly and threw the wine glass to Phasian. Then, standing up, a black and red Zanpakutō appeared in his hand with a cold light that made people look at it and feel the extremely stinging eyeballs. This is Lord Qianye's Zanpakutō. Hijin was dozens of meters away, staring closely at the black and red Zanpakutō with a golden hilt. Don't dare to get too close. It seemed that if he got any closer, his skin would be cut off by this extremely sharp cut. Master Qianye? Feijun looked confused and couldn't figure out why Kuchiki Qianye took out the knife. Kuchiki Qianye just waved his hands, hummed a tune, and walked out of Qianye Pavilion. Then his figure flashed, sitting at the top of Qianye Pavilion on the towering spire. The black and red lines on the blade are like coiling dragons, twisting and roaring. Under the reflection of the moonlight, it exudes an aura of destruction that cuts off everything. The surrounding darkness, which is deeper than the night, is constantly appearing, and it is a space that has been chopped into pieces. He found out what a terrible sense of perception. Around him, there were several sneaky figures dressed in black. Looking at Kuchiki Qianye at the top of Qianye Pavilion, his pupils contracted. In front of them, the dispersal formation is in operation and can dispel surrounding Shinigami, creatures, and suppress the spread of Reiatsu. It can make Siriidii unable to discover the fight here. At the same time, another, more dazzling formation is slowly rotating, and a mysterious and inexplicable space aura is coming from it. And devastating power fluctuations. A huge, dark, and extremely deep space passage appeared in the field, and countless harsh roars came from it. This is one of the secrets of the Tsunayashiro family. It can construct a one-way space channel. Connect Hueco Mundo and Soul Society. You can briefly lure Hueco Mundo's virtual soul to Soul Society. It doesn't matter if you find out. Today is Kuchiki Qianye's fate. Time is up. The leader sneered and waved his hand. A glass bottle appeared in his hand, and it shattered in an instant. From it, huge and majestic soul fluctuations are emitted. Suddenly, in the space channel, the roar became more intense, faintly turned into a crazy roar. These souls aroused the deepest desires in their hearts. Behemoths that covered the sky and covered the sun rushed out crazily, and the tyrannical power of Reiatsu spread out as if a natural disaster was coming. 032, a sure kill situation. The huge thing fell to the ground. Large swathes of gravel and dust were thrown up, and the ground shook wildly, unable to bear the terrifying weight and Reiatsu. There were huge cracks that were extremely dark, deep, and empty. 8 figures were huge, wearing a bone mask on their heads, or 4 arms, or behemoths swimming in the air like long snakes, appeared in the field. Without exception, a huge hole was opened in their chests, emitting a terrifying aura as powerful as a dragon-veined giant mountain. And, following closely behind were hundreds of figures with weaker auras, their chests still filled with a void of nothingness. Most of them have distorted faces and low spirits, looking like soldiers, while others have dull faces and wear masks with long noses, continuously pouring out from the space channel. At the same time, in the space passage, the roar was still fierce, and a figure with an even more terrifying aura loomed. Unfortunately, the time has come. The leader looked regretful. The space channel behind him slowly exhausted its power and then closed directly. It hinders the entry of more voids. However, these are enough. Too many, it would be a disaster for Soul Society. The leader's eyes shone brightly as he looked at the densely packed figures in front of him. Hundreds of Reiatsu gathered together are as vast as the vast ocean. The power of Huang is irresistible, even though he is the strongest fighter that the Tsunayashiro family has worked hard to cultivate. He has the strength of a peak captain. At this moment, facing hundreds of empty Reiatsu, I still feel as if there is a huge mountain in my heart, and my breathing is a little unsmooth. Activate the concealment formation. The leader waved his hand, and a small formation with a radius of 10 meters enveloped all 7 figures of the men in black. Not a single breath leaked out, covering the Minos Granda's perceptions. Hidden yourself well. At the same time, look at the scene in the field from a distance. The soul power that had just escaped was swallowed up by hundreds of voids. In a glass bottle, it is the soul of the Shinigami prisoner that the Tsunayashiro family extracted from the prison through its influence. Void, the hollow in their chests, represents the emptiness in their hearts. In order to fill this emptiness, they will continue to eat souls, and Shinigami soul is their favorite. Only a pure, massive soul can attract so many Minos Grande. Ajuches, still 8. Dozens for Jillian, hundreds for Xiaoxiu. Haha. No matter how strong Kuchiki Qianye is, he will still fall into this boundless ocean of virtual tide. The leader caressed Zanpakutō on his waist, a dark smile forming on his lips. Hueco Mundo. There are 5 levels of virtuality. Xiaoxiu, miscellaneous soldiers. Jillian, Minos Grande, deputy captain level compatibility. Ajuches, medium Minos Grande. Hueco Mundo is a rare strong man, only weaker than the captain level. Schwartz, the strongest Minos Grande, the top captain level. Wang Su, the king of Hueco Mundo, can defeat the entire Godai 13 by himself. Bring disaster to Soul Society. Now, there are 8 Ajuches level hollows, dozens of Jillians, and even hundreds of little hollows. Even the most elite captain would suffer under such a crowd attack. Behind the leader, the other figures in black also laughed softly and looked at the top of Qianye Pavilion with a playful expression. That extremely lazy, motionless man, like a statue? I'm afraid I was scared out of my wits. Release the isolation shield and never give Kuchiki Qianye the slightest chance to escape. Following the leader's order. At the same time, a huge circular shield filled the air, emitting a strange and inexplicable aura. Murderous stone shield can block out all Ryatsu, the transmission of spirit children. No Shinigami can pass directly through the shield. Even if you get close to the murderous stone, the Ryatsu on your body will be cut off, and your strength will be reduced. It is the Tsunayashiro family, the highest courtesy to Kuchiki Qianye, a sure kill situation. Now, inside Qianye Pavilion, many girls sensed Ryatsu and were so shocked that their legs trembled and they broke out in cold sweat. Someone was standing in front of the window and saw the terrifying scene outside. He covered his mouth and exclaimed, "Born, overwhelmingly dense. As far as the eye can see, there are hideous and terrifying figures wearing bone masks everywhere. Some of them even vaguely exude the irresistible and extremely powerful aura of Ryatsu. Hundreds of heads are empty, covering all sight, like a vast ocean, swallowing up everything and destroying everything. This is an irresistible force. Not good. Contact the Kuchiki family quickly. Godai 13. Feijun was the first to react. Hundreds of heads are empty. There are also Ajuches levels among them. This is already a major disaster. If it is not handled well, the entire Rakangai will suffer huge damage, and countless civilians will perish and have their souls devoured by these voids. The first one to bear the brunt is Qianye Pavilion. Although Master Qianye has surpassed captain-level strength, but facing such a huge virtual tide at the same time, no one thinks he can win. Only with the support of Siriidii can we resist. Otherwise, today the entire Qianye Pavilion will be destroyed, and no one will be spared. 033. You are surrounded by me alone. Subsequently, Hijin wanted to contact the outside world through an item that was distributed directly by the Kuchiki family, similar to a modern landline phone. But there was no response except beep! Exclamation point. Has all contact been severed? The girls around looked desperate and looked out the window. That densely packed figure exuded terrifying power. This is a conspiracy. Contact was severed, coupled with the fierce and powerful enemies. It's clear to everyone. This is a surefire shot against Kuchiki Qianye. Roar! Hundreds of heads roared fiercely, and any movement caused a huge wave of air. Has the power to crush mountains. The eyes under the mask were full of destruction, wanting to devour everything. That person's breath is very delicious. All Minos Grande cast their greedy eyes upward, on the figure sitting slouching and holding a Zanpakutō. In their perception, that man's soul is like a delicious cake, full of fatal attraction. This is a taste I've never seen before. Subsequently, Jillian suddenly exerted force on her body and rushed upwards. The mammoth Ryatsu surges wildly. This is Deputy Captain level combat power. Brush, a flash of sword light flashed. Jillian was originally extremely ferocious, fierce, and as big as a small mountain. The bone mask on his face cracked in half. The whole head suddenly broke into two halves and fell heavily to the ground. There was a sound of boom, and a large amount of dust was splashed. The cut surface is as smooth as a mirror, without any flaws. It is simply perfect, like a work of art. Roar, seeing their companions being killed. The surrounding Sioux didn't hesitate at all, but instead roared even more ferociously, pressing harder and harder. Towards the top of Qianye Pavilion, the man with a lazy face pressed heavily. Hueco Mundo, emotional indifference. The weak eat the strong, and all that is left is to devour each other. Only by devouring hollows of the same kind can we become stronger. The death of Jillian did not cause the slightest disturbance in their hearts. Is this the heaven's end? It's as sharp as the rumors say. In the hidden formation, the leader sighed and shook his head slightly. The name of the sharp edge that can break all things has resounded throughout Soul Society. Rumor has it that any substance will be cut off with a single blow under the heaven's end. And Kuchiki Qianye, being able to have such a great reputation has a lot to do with the unparalleled sharpness that can cut through all phenomena. But how could we, the Tsunayashiro family, not be prepared for this? The leader looked at Kuchiki Qianye above him. The corners of his mouth curved slightly, and he turned to look behind him. A brown-red shield as tall as a person appeared in his eyes, a calm and thick, like the ultimate defense power of a shocking mountain, making people unable to think of breaking the shield. In front of the shield, there are two thick blue ropes, which can absorb the incoming damage to the maximum extent. It was as if nothing in the world could penetrate it. This is the great gift given to you by the Tsunayashiro family. The leader murmured softly, his eyes fixed on Kuchiki Qianye above. Boom! Minos Grande, who was 50 meters tall, had an unparalleled aura and was covered in thick Ryatsu, suddenly flashed out of the way, appeared directly in front of Kuchiki Qianye, and then the huge arm that looked like a heavy hammer made a harsh whistling sound in the air. It hit Kuchiki Qianye crazily and heavily. Ajuches, only slightly weaker than the captain. Fiddle, similar to Shuinpa. It is a skill that can only be used by high-level Minos Grande. Can move instantly. He is unpredictable and unpredictable. Bang! Smoke and dust scattered on ground. Huge cracks with details like spiderwebs appeared, and a huge pit that was 10 meters deep appeared. Next moment, the sound. The sound of flesh being cut was heard, and Minos Grande's head as big as a house rose into the sky. A sword light shot out of his body, cutting his huge body into pieces in the blink of an eye. Boom, like a tall building collapsing. Minos Grande, which was originally towering into the sky and extremely huge, turned into a pile of broken pieces and scattered on the ground. The skin on his body that was harder than steel was like tofu in front of that sword light. It was cut open without any hindrance. Whoosh! Kuchiki Qianye's figure flashed and disappeared without a trace. And the place where it was originally was instantly submerged by the virtual tide. It made a loud noise like a thunderstorm. The place was in a mess, with dense fist marks everywhere, Ryatsu shock waves, and the land being extremely compressed into rock. Minos Grande's attack, as well as Siro, were originally weapons for harvesting life. But in front of Kuchiki Qianye, he was like a child dancing with a stick, ridiculously slow. No matter how strong the attack was, it was impossible to cause any harm to him. This is Shuinpa reaching his limit. 100 steps per second, 100 meters at a time. In 1 second, you can move 10,000 meters. Puffed, puffed in the field. The sharp blade penetrated the body. The sound of flesh cutting could be heard endlessly, and Kuchiki Qianye's figure flashed crazily. It's like the king of hell is harvesting life. Every time the sword is swung, a Minos Grande head flies up, numbness, and gracefully reap the lives of each one. Original. Hundreds of virtual beings, densely packed and surging like waves, seem to be surrounded by Kuchiki Qianye alone. 034. One person is unparalleled until he becomes a god. At the same time, a Minos Grande suddenly appeared next to Kuchiki Qianye. The huge body covers the sky and the sun, and the Ryatsu is powerful, emitting Jillian-level Ryatsu waves. The huge, pale, cold, and ferocious palm grabbed Kuchiki Qianye directly. Boom! Kuchiki Qianye cut off the head of a Minos Grande with one knife, made a fist with his other hand, and violently collided with Minos Grande's palm. Ga-bang! The sound of bones and body tissues exploding was endless, and Minos Grande's huge palm exploded and was destroyed under Kuchiki Qianye's fist, turned into fine pieces of resistance blowing in the wind. Roar! Minos Grande let out a shrill howl, and the next moment a flash of sword light flashed across his face. Its head flew high into the sky, and its body was cut into pieces. Captain-level white hits, coupled with Kuchiki Qianye's Ryatsu, which is level 40, even without relying on Zanpakutō. It's enough to defeat the captain-level combat power. Kuchiki Qianye made a fist with his left hand and brandished a knife with his right hand. The scene was full of Su Lin's shrill howl before his death. Countless sword lights are densely packed, forming a galaxy-like sky, exuding an extremely sharp aura. Nothing can stand in the way. Nothing Minos Grande can resist. Harvest wildly on the battlefield. One person is unparalleled until he becomes a super god. Even the top is composed of murderous stones, claimed to block all Ryatsu, the protective shield of the spirit child, as well as the formations that hindered the leakage of breath. They were all affected by the sword light. Like a broken eggshell teetering on the verge of collapse, the sword light puff, went in and out without any hindrance. Next moment, a crisp cracking sound resounded in my ears, and the protective shield exploded. Everything that happened in Qianye Pavilion. Can't hide it anymore. Suddenly, hundreds of Ryatsu soar into the sky. Dozens of Minos Grande's Ryatsu are even more terrifying. But under a more powerful and extreme Ryatsu, even Jillian and Ajucha's level Minos Grande were eclipsed. Just like the stars holding the moon, only the light of that person remains. The entire Siriidii can feel the huge danger close at hand. At the same time, you can also see not far away from the sky, a wisp of white, a huge sword light that seems to cut through the sky. Irresistible sharpness. Seirite. The alarm sounded for a long time, and there was a huge shock. Every light is turned on. Central 46, Godii 13, the Four Nobles. Even the Soul King Palace turned its attention to Rukongai, that earth-shattering battle. Island in the middle of the lake. Central 46. Hundreds of hollow Ryatsu, including dozens of Minos Grande levels. Send Kid members, Godii 13, and the secret mobile team to deal with them immediately. 40 sages and 6 judges sensed the Ryatsu from the outside world, and their pupils contracted violently. How many years? How many years? This is the largest invasion Soul Society has suffered in 100 years. It's so heartbreaking. Why did Ryatsu suddenly appear? I sensed a Shinigami's Ryatsu. Fighting at this time. That's Kuchiki Qianye's Ryatsu. There's no mistake. He's alone, facing the siege of hundreds of hollows. He can't die. Immediately issue the highest order, and all forces will go to rescue. Central 46 members immediately issued instructions and passed them to everyone in Siriidii through black butterflies. One person can stand up to hundreds of people without dying. Kuchiki Qianye not only has potential, but even his strength has reached an extremely terrifying level. Definitely the best, even surpassing the level of the top captain, Such combat power must be firmly held in your hands without any mistakes. Hope he can last longer. Kuchiki family, that is brother's breath. Byakuya Kuchiki's pupils shrank violently, and his whole body trembled crazily. He directly picked up Zanpakutō and rushed outside. As soon as I left the room, I saw Kuchiki Songjuan and Kuchiki Jinling with a serious look on their faces. Before Byakuya Kuchiki could speak, Kuchiki picked him up with a silver bell, activated Shuanpa, and rushed towards the distance. That was the siege of hundreds of hollows and dozens of Minos Grande. And there is only one person in Rukongai, Kuchiki Qianye, who has top-notch captaincy. Under such an offensive, any captain will suffer hatred. To deal with a virtual tide of this magnitude, half of the Godai 13 would have to be mobilized. Brother, you must hold on. The wind howled. Byakuya Kuchiki tightened his grip on Zanpakutō, with a worried look on his face, looking far away at the huge, crisscrossing white sword light. Countless Minos Grande towering into the sky and the earth, the towering Minos Grande figure, and the looming roaring sound. Godai 13. Headquarters. The moment Ryatsu was discovered, within 5 minutes, all the captains gathered together and appeared in the conference room with solemn faces. Yamamoto Jinrosai sat in the top position. His face was lined with old ravines, and his expression was extremely gloomy. Godai 13, all out. Rescue Kuchiki Qianye. With an order. Unoana Retsu, Muguruma Kinsei, Shiryukatake, Kairaku, Shunsui, Zaraki Kinpachi now. All the captains at the headquarters rushed towards Rukongai without any hesitation. 035. Soul Society's strongest shield. This is a conspiracy against Kuchiki Qianye. They have been fighting this wave for at least 10 minutes. But it happened just now. On the road, Kairaku Shunsui is still wearing the familiar sakura flower Heir, restrained from his usual laziness, and his tone is extremely solemn. Now, the most important thing is to rescue first. That's a joint attack by hundreds of imaginary people. No matter how talented Kuchiki Qianye is, he won't be able to sustain it for long. Unoana Retsu sat on a giant ray and shook his head slightly, floating rapidly in the air. This is Minazuki Shirkai's ability to transform into a giant one-eyed ray. I really envy that boy for being able to experience such a thrilling battle of life and death. Zaraki Kinpachi grinned. The jagged Zanpakutō made a crunching sound when pinched. The whole person has been raised to the peak state. Looking forward to the next battle. Next moment, a flash of fire appeared, like a shooting star burning with blazing flames in the sky, rushing towards Rukongai, the battlefield. Even the commander-in-chief took action himself. It seems that he really regards Kuchiki Qianye as the hope of Soul Society, and is afraid that Qianye will be injured in the slightest. Feeling the Ryatsu consuming everything in the fire, Kairaku Shunsui sighed. There are not many reasons that make Yamamoto Jinrosai take action, and Kuchiki Qianye is one of them. Tsunayashiro family. The head of the Tsunayashiro family looked at the moonlight in the distance, feeling the Ryatsu of Minos Grande and the sharpness of the sword. He nodded slightly. There was a mocking smile on his lips. Let you make your last desperate struggle. Hundreds of hollows, dozens of Minos Grande, and a Juch's level Ryatsu among them. This is the surefire game against Kuchiki Qianye. Forget it. His combat power is superb. Zanpakutō is unparalleled in his sharpness and can kill all hollows. But how could the Tsunayashiro family not make preparations for his Zanpakutō? Before, the Tsunayashiro family had long ago borrowed a divine weapon from the Shohoin family in the name of research. Soul Society. The strongest shield that no one can break. It is as famous as Soul Society's strongest spear, Skyaku, which has the same attack power as 1,000,000 Zanpakutō. Even if his Zanpakutō were 10,000 times sharper, it would still be impossible to cut it open. That means absolute defense. In Suriidii, the students of Spiritual Arts Academy were also awakened by the huge Ryatsu in the middle of the night, and looked at Rukongai with suspicious eyes. This is Kuchiki Qianye's Ryatsu, right? How can it be so huge? He is currently fighting hundreds of hollows alone. Everyone was talking about it. For the entrance test, they all came into contact with Kuchiki Qianye's Ryatsu. Although, this Ryatsu is several times more powerful than before, but its essential aura will not change. The one fighting must be Kuchiki Qianye. Can Kuchiki Qianye survive this time? If he dies, the entire Soul Society will be shaken. After all, that is the #1 genius, the Star of Hope who is valued by Captain Yuan Liuzhai. In the middle of the night, everyone was more energetic than during the day. They don't have enough strength, so they can only stay here and wait for the final result. Oops. Shihoin family. After Shihoin Naruchi felt Kuchiki Qianye's Ryatsu, he didn't even have time to put on his shoes and rushed directly towards Rukongai. Urahara also woke up in the middle of the night with big dark circles around her eyes. There were densely packed piles of information on the table, and an incomplete aqua blue jade that exudes mysterious power. This is what he recently developed with great effort, Jayaku, but it was not successful and is still in the research and development stage. Now, Urahara no longer cared about research and ran out of the door, rushing in the direction of Rukongai. Only Aizen, wearing square glasses, in his room. Different from the cheerful and gentle image in school during the day, at this moment, his face was cold and indifferent to everything. Even though there was a huge fight outside, he just shook his head slightly, as if everything had nothing to do with him. Seirite. All major forces took action. Everyone was filled with worry, and their expressions were solemn. No one thinks that Kuchiki Qianye can withstand such an attack for a long time. They all rushed to the rescue. Now, Rukongai, Qianye Pavilion battlefield. The bursting formation fragments scattered in all directions. It reflected the slightly dull gaze of the leader of the Man in Black. The Ryatsu who sensed the leaks from the battlefield, and the various Ryatsu rising into the sky in Siriidii. The leader of the Men in Black clenched his fists tightly, staring at the battlefield. Kuchiki Qianye is like a god of war. What kind of monster is this? Not only is Zanpakutō unparalleled, even White Hits and Shuinpa are at captain level. Just a few minutes. Hundreds of heads fell into his hands. It also contains the three-headed Ajucha's level Minos Grande. It wasn't like he was surrounded by hundreds of virtual beings. It was more like he was alone and surrounded everyone. We can't delay any longer. Once the Soul Society rescue comes, there will no longer be a chance to kill him. Said, the concealment formation disappears. 7 figures of men in black emerged from it, and 7 Ryatsu soared into the sky. 2 captain levels. 5th deputy, captain level. The most eye-catching thing is a huge brown-red shield as thick as a mountain, exuding an aura that is indestructible and can block everything. This is a great gift prepared by the Tsunayashiro family for Kuchiki Qianye. No matter how sharp his Zanpakutō is, it is absolutely impossible to break through. Soul Society's strongest shield. Liberate now. 036. When did you get the illusion that I was using Shurkai? Boom! Between heaven and earth. There was the roar of a dull thunderstorm. The shield is as thick as a mountain and full of indestructible aura, with a layer of dazzling brilliance lingering on it. Invisible air waves spread everywhere, spreading to the horizon, as if to suppress and resist everything. This is Soul Society's strongest shield, liberated at this moment. After the shield, then a thick film of light appeared, wrapping all the people. Any attack, even Kuchiki Qianye's slashes, can only leave shallow traces on the light film and shield. The leader's face was full of ferocity and murderous intent, and a heavy and thick Zanpakutō appeared in his hand. The other 6 people also drew their swords and released Shurkai one after another. Huddle behind your shield, like a cold lion majesty. It sends out long-range attacks from time to time to interfere with Kuchiki Qianye's battle. If your Shurkai is only this level, then die here. The leader spoke in a low tone, holding Zanpakutō tightly, as if telling a fact. His eyes were extremely cold, looking at the marks on the shield, while feeling horrified in my heart. There is also a hint of joy. This kind of attack power is so sharp. He's definitely using Shurkai. After all, not all Shurkai requires chanting. I had known for a long time that Kuchiki Qianye's Zanpakutō was extremely sharp, but I didn't expect that even Soul Society's strongest shield could not completely resist it. It could still cause some wear and tear. Their Shurkai abilities can both be used as long-range attacks. Under the interference of so many Minos Grande, no matter how strong Kuchiki Qianye is, he will still suffer from this endless wave of attacks. At the same time, the remaining dozens of Minos Grande, as well as the 5 Ajuchas, roared wildly. The soul of Kuchiki Qianye is overflowing with fragrance. The quality is much better than that of those people in the shield. It is simply a difference between cloud and mud. Besides, the shield is nothing more than a turtle shell and cannot be broken. Then, all Minos Grande, turn your anger on Kuchiki Qianye. Ryatsu with 5 levels of Ajuchas is like a heavy mountain tilting down from the sky. Crush everything to pieces. Afterwards, dozens of Minos Grande and the few remaining Xiaoshu also launched attacks. But, the top of Qianye Pavilion. The man had a nonchalant look on his face, not caring about the oncoming attacks, even using Shuanpa. Entering Qianye Pavilion, he randomly picked up a bottle of wine and drank it. Lazy eyes looked at the proud and determined leader behind the shield. A smile twitched at the corner of his mouth. When did you get the illusion that I was using Shurkai? Next moment, Zanpakutō was spread across his chest. The mammoth Ryatsu swept through the sky, and the endless white sword light spread crazily towards the surroundings with him as the center of the circle. Sweeping across the wilderness, no one can defeat it. Shurkai, destroy the world, destroy everything at the same time. Near Qianye Pavilion, a few kilometers away, countless figures had gathered, and a large number of Rakongai residents were disturbed from their sleep by this sudden Ryatsu. Looking at the elusive figure in the distance, each knife can harvest one or even several virtual figures. This kind of fighting power, unprecedentedly powerful and unstoppable, as if it should not exist in the world. Some old people even worshipped. This is the god sent by God to save them. And, above the sky, a ray of fire rushed towards him with an aura that destroyed everything. The figure of an old man with a solemn face was looming. He held a brown cane in his hand. Not long after, Seirite, all other support has arrived. First, as far as the eye can see, there is nothing but pitch-black scorched earth and slash marks all over the place, cutting the earth and everything around like crazy. On the ground, it's all densely packed with countless fragments of the body. It is slowly dissipating over time, and there are hundreds of hollows still standing. There are 5 Ajuchas and dozens of Jillian-level Minos Grande. This is Kuchiki Qianye. Is it really hard to fight? Uno Hanaretsu, Kuchiki Jinling, and other captains looked blank. He rubbed his eyes and looked at the ruined battlefield. He couldn't believe what he was seeing. I saw that Kuchiki Qianye was like a god of war, cutting off everything with one strike. Jillian, the Ajucha's level Minos Grande, will be instantly cut into 2 halves as long as he touches his sword light. Original, the Minos Grande invasion was a disaster for the entire Siriidei. Instead, it became a performance by Kuchiki Qianye alone. Personal killing show. Everyone was stunned for a moment. Even Yamamoto, Jinryusai, Shigekuni narrowed his eyes and straightened his stooped waist. He was watching the battle in front of him with all his concentration. In front of you. The captains of each division, especially Muguruma Kensei, looked like they had seen a ghost when they watched Kuchiki Qianye's performance. One person, can it still be this strong? I'm afraid that Mr. Yamamoto can only do this at Kuchiki Qianye's age. All of them were wrong. How wrong? Kuchiki Qianye was besieged by hundreds of virtual men and fell into a bitter battle? Are you kidding me? Kuchiki Qianye is dying. Kuchiki Qianye is in a dilemma. Kuchiki Qianye's life hangs on a thread. Kuchiki Qianye's defeat is determined. Kuchiki Qianye, giving his winning speech. 037. This name is too crazy. I don't like it. under everyone's gaze. Next moment, the familiar shield comes into view. The color is brown and red, with two blue ribbons on the front, which are ribbons used to absorb attacks and buffer. Even Skyaku, which has an attack power comparable to that of 1,000,000 Zanpakutō, cannot break through its defense. God-given armor, the treasure of the Shihoin family, as famous as the strongest spear Skyaku, the strongest shield of Soul Society. What are the origins of these people? The strength of 2 captains and 5 vice captains is really generous. Kairaku, Shunsui, Uno Hanaretsu, and others all narrowed their eyes. Staring down, 7 figures in black were huddled behind the shield. Tonight, I'm afraid it's not just a simple Minos Grande invasion. It's more like a certain person or a certain force, targeting Kuchiki Qianye's surefire plan. Hundreds of voids, dozens of Minos Grande, 8 ajuches, 2 captains, 5 vice captains, plus Soul Society's strongest shield. This is a force that is enough to overturn the structure of Soul Society. He even used it against Kuchiki Qianye. Normally, Kuchiki Qianye is bound to die, but everyone underestimates Kuchiki Qianye's strength. Who would have thought? He is so strong. Captain, should we? Uno Hanaretsu frowned, holding the Zanpakutō handle in his hand, and looked at Mr. Yamamoto. The strongest shield. Nothing can be broken by the attack. Even if Kuchiki Qianye's Zanpakutō is extremely sharp, everyone can see that the sword light can only leave shallow slash marks on the strongest shield, coupled with enemy interference. But Yamamoto, Jinryusai Shigekuni, just shook his head slightly and looked at the battlefield with squinted eyes without any expression on his face. This kind of fight is an opportunity for Kuchiki Qianye to grow. Even if you can't break through the strongest shield's defense, it's easy to escape from the battlefield. Just be a spectator. Right now, everyone heard the voice of Kuchiki Qianye's Shurkai. Destroy the world. Destroy all phenomena. In the battlefield, countless sword energies overflowed crazily, spreading crazily in all directions. The silent night was instantly illuminated. As far as the eye can see, a vast expanse of white. Billions of sword lights intertwined into a pure white ocean. This is a sword that is extremely sharp, and each one is comparable to a slash from the main body of Tian Duan Wanxiang. Click, the space, like fragile glass, was instantly shattered, cut off, and turned into flying fragments. The ajuches are menacing, with strength ranging from captain to vice captain level, with ferocious roars and greedy eyes. And dozens of Jillian Minos Grande, the few remaining empties. Like a small insect sealed in amber, its figure stagnated abruptly, with thin black lines surging around it. And countless white sword lights penetrated them all. In the past, the proud iron skin and defense were like tofu in front of the countless sword lights. Can't cause any hindrance. Next moment, boom, the sound of flesh collapsing was heard. The ground is littered with countless tiny fragments of the virtual body. The cut surface is as smooth as a mirror. There are no flaws, as if it were a work of art carved by God. The pupils of the people in black behind the shield shrank violently, and some of their bodies were trembling. In their eyes, the 5-headed ajuches, the huge body that was 10 meters high, suddenly collapsed. Under the cutting of billions of blades, it turned into countless tiny dust-like particles flying in the wind. And the countless cracks in the space exude a terrifying attraction. Those particles were all swallowed up before they could reach the ground. 5 heads, ajuches, all destroyed in an instant. Is a human being? I'm afraid that's what Captain Yamamoto is all about. That person is a monster. Fortunately, the shield's defense has not been broken. The leader looked at the many deep and fine cuts on the shield, as if they were about to penetrate. Endless sharp intention permeates the world. But after all, it is better to defend against the attack just now. Otherwise, they would be nothing more than scraps of meat scattered on the ground. Soul Society's strongest shield is really miserable. The leader of the man in black smiled bitterly. Next moment, In the air, the dense sword light disappeared instantly. Just for a moment, like a baby swallow returning to its nest, it looked like a pure white meteor shower under the thick night sky. Between heaven and earth, the scattered, infinite sword energy gathered on top of the sky. On the blade, the black and red lines twisted crazily, like roaring hidden dragons, exuding a terrifying power that was sharp and could destroy everything. The brilliance bloomed on the blade. Under the boundless night, it looks like a bright white sun. Then it turned into a slender, sharp thread that was invisible to the naked eye. This is Shirkai's power compressed to the ultimate, leaving only the purest sharpness, the degree of sharpness. It's 10,000 times more than before. Nothing can resist it. Next moment, for all to see, at the top of Qianye Pavilion, Kuchiki Qianye stood lazily, holding a handful of sharp energy compressed to ultimate in one hand. Zanpakutō is scattered with a breathtaking white light that annihilates everything. That is the most ultimate sharpness that everyone has ever seen. In the other hand, he held a bottle of strong liquor and took a deep sip. Exciting life and death battlefield. A sure kill situation. It seemed like it couldn't make any waves in his heart. A smile twitched at the corner of his mouth. Soul Society's strongest shield? This name is too crazy and I don't like it. 038. Concentrate and reach the top. He. He didn't even use Shirkai in the fight just now. Be present. Muguruma can say, Hirako Shinji and others' eyes will pop out, looking at the current Kuchiki Qianye. After Shirkai, the space was shattered at the fingertips, and the terrifying power of sharp compression made him call him a monster. If only he had used Shirkai from the beginning. I'm afraid they didn't even arrive. Kuchiki Qianye solved the battle. Others were even more stunned. Uno and Aretsu put down Zanpakutō's hand slumped, and the fighting spirit against Kuchiki Qianye disappeared completely. Can't beat it. No matter how you look at it, you can't beat it. Kuchiki Qianye did not use Shirkai, but showed combat power comparable to that of Bankai. So, after he used Shirkai, the power of space shattering was 10 times greater than before. For a moment, dozens of Minos Grande were wiped out. Even the strongest shield has been irreparably damaged. All in all proved that he has the potential to catch up with, or even surpass Captain Yamamoto in the future. Aizen, stay away from that person in the future, okay? Behind the tall and fierce man, there was a little girl with pink hair whose body was already trembling. I was extremely worried. Kusajishi Ichiru, but I'm afraid that Zaraki Kenpachi will get hot-headed and challenge Kuchiki Qianye again. Zaraki Kenpachi nodded solemnly. But when I'm strong enough, I will still fight him. Qianye, Shiho Naruchi, and Urahara Kisuke hurried over and looked at Kuchiki Qianye, who looked indifferent on Qianye's pavilion. The Zanpakutō in your hand is like a bright star in the night sky, blooming with pure white brilliance. The ground was densely covered with corpses everywhere that had been ravaged by the blade storm and turned into pieces. Pupils contract violently. Uno and Aretsu on the side stretched out his hand to stop the two advancing. The space in front is very unstable. You will be torn apart in an instant. Uruchi and Urahara nodded. Urahara, in particular, had complicated emotions as she thought about her own experiment. Perhaps the power of Jayaku. There is no Kuchiki Qianye. He drinks and sleeps every day, but it is even more terrifying to have such combat power. That is my family's shield. Uruchi looked at the shield, full of holes in the field, and exclaimed. Before, it was the Tsunayashiro family who borrowed the shield from my family. The Tsunayashiro family. Everyone present nodded slightly. Sure enough, what happened between Kuchiki Qianye and Tsunayashiro Tokinada was not a secret. There has been a deep hatred between the two. Just didn't expect it. The Tsunayashiro family actually spent such a huge price just to completely kill Kuchiki Qianye. Kuchiki Aochuan, Kuchiki Gingling were furious. Their faces turned red. The Kuchiki family now declares a full-scale war with the Tsunayashiro family. For nobles, each of them is a giant of Soul Society with intricate connections and huge power. Once the two families go to war, the impact is even more serious than tonight. Cause an uproar. Shogun Yuruchi also looked serious, having blatantly caused turmoil in Seoul society. The Shogun family, must also hold the Tsunayashiro family accountable. The Tsunayashiro family is not worthy of being among the four nobles. As the eldest princess and heir of the Shogun family, Shogun Yuruchi's words carry great weight. Aside, Yamamoto Jinrosai also narrowed his eyes slightly and did not speak. This is a family matter between nobles, and Godai, 13, is not qualified to take charge of it. But that is my family's artifact, the strongest shield. Kuchiki Qianye, can you cut it off? Yuruchi looked at the man in black huddled behind the shield in the field, and the man with an indifferent expression at the top of Qianye Pavilion. His brows furrowed slightly. Everyone, he also looked over. The myth of Seoul society, the shield passed down from generation to generation by the Shogun family. Shirkai with Seoul society's sharpest Zanpakutō, the strongest genius Kuchiki Qianye. This battle, it is a major event that can be recorded in the history of Seoul society. Each of them is a witness. Now, on the battlefield, behind a fine dust cut by the vertical and horizontal blades, and the huge shield shining with tenacity, large drops of cold sweat flowed from the foreheads of the men in black. That sharp energy, even through a shield, their skin felt like needle pricks and their hearts felt like they were being pinched. Full of inexplicable fear. Don't be afraid. Pour all the Ryatsu into the shield. The leader's back was wet with cold sweat. He ordered aloud. Then, as Ryatsu continued to pour in, the light on the shield became brighter and brighter, and the original light film became more diffuse and became several times thicker. Even Skyaku. No trace can be left on the current shield. This shield above. Kuchiki Qianye nodded slightly. It is very famous. In the original work, when Byakuya Kuchiki was executed, it also resisted Skyaku's attack. It can be called the strongest defense. But concentrate a little, reach the peak, and conquer all things. Everything in the sky suddenly lit up. A sharp energy penetrated the heaven and earth, and an invisible and terrifying pressure filled the entire place. All the sword light is gathered on the blade. The power is compressed to a point by ultimate. If, just now, it was a large-scale AoE, now it is the strongest and sharpest single-target attack. 039. Defeat the enemy with one strike. Next moment, click, large areas of space were shattered, revealing dark holes, which looked chilling. A pure white light, like a fleeting meteor in the sky. It drew an arc in the sky that seemed not to exist in the human world. Invisible to the naked eye, he arrived directly in front of the shield at the speed of a space jump. Cut off with one knife. Come out through the body. The strongest shield was like a fragile piece of paper being torn apart violently. Can't stop even a single cent. A terrifying sword light penetrated directly into the distant sky, leaving a dark and deep crack on the earth. It spans dozens of miles. Bottomless. It has even penetrated the rock layer below, and I don't know how far it has penetrated. Everything was silent. The world was silent because of the knife just now. Everyone's eyes were fixed on a battlefield, and Kuchiki Qianye directly put away the blade. Finished the last sip of wine. He swaggered into Qianye Pavilion and ignored the people outside. Next moment, boom, a sound. The severed strongest shield fell heavily to the ground. At the same time, with a few puff and puff sounds, 7 heads flew high into the air, their necks like fountains, sprinkling large amounts of blood. The cut surfaces of the 7 broken Zanpakutō are as smooth as mirrors. One knife. The strongest shield was cut into 2 pieces. How sharp is his Zanpakutō? Everyone's backs were wet with cold sweat as they looked at the broken shield on the ground. If they faced this knife, I simply don't dare to think too much. Unohana Retsu, Kairaka Shunsui, and others even looked bitter. They had been practicing hard for many years, but they were easily surpassed by a junior. Especially, or are they just lying around every day, eating and waiting to die, and only know how to enjoy life? Byakuya, Yuruchi, Urahara and others were shocked and speechless. He could only look blankly at the broken limbs and arms on the ground, and the battlefield that had been ravaged by the blade storm, and the strongest shield that has lost all its spirituality and is lying on the ground indifferently. Skyako has the attack power of 1,000,000 Zanpakutō, nor can it break through the defense of the strongest shield. But he was cut open by Kuchiki Qianye. Doesn't this mean that Kuchiki Qianye's attack power has exceeded 1,000,000 Zanpakutō? His attack, it relies mostly on the sharpness of Zanpakutō. This sword is the sharpest Zanpakutō ever. Yamamoto Jinryusai Shigekuni said calmly. Even, it's countless times sharper than Nigeia Oyui's Zanpakutō, which is so sharp that it can't be stored in its sheath. Wang Yu of Ermiawu, Sword God, a member of Team Zero and the prototype of all Zanpakutō, the creator of this sealed state. From now on, the name of the sharpest Zanpakutō is about to change hands. Is the sharp element the strongest? Everyone present nodded. Now, Soul Society's strongest Zanpakutō has another one. Yamamoto Jinrasai possesses the strongest fire type. Raijin Jaka, Kuchiki Qianye, on the other hand, is the strongest in the sharp element. With the potential and combat power he has shown, maybe, in the future, we can really break the 1,000-year pattern of Soul Society. Beyond Yamamoto, become the strongest. Forget it, stop looking at it, and clean up the battlefield quickly. Muguruma Kensei looked at the members of the Godei 13th Division who arrived. The battle just now. The corpses were scattered everywhere, piece by piece, and due to the sharpness of the sword. The landscape and environment have been devastated and must be repaired. We were originally here for support, but who would have thought that he would actually become the one responsible for the aftermath? Aside, the captain sighed. He and the others did not take action at all. Kuchiki Qianye eliminated all the opponents by himself. It's absolutely terrifying. Today will definitely be recorded in the history of Soul Society, and this event is not over yet. Kairaku Shunsui shook his head slightly. Kuchiki Qianye is unscathed and has strong fighting power, which is naturally a good thing. Now, the purpose is to hold those behind the scenes accountable. The Tsunayashiro family is a giant. If they refuse to admit it and destroy all the evidence, Central 46, those old-fashioned guys, will definitely protect the power of Soul Society. And Mud. Next, there is the collision between the two giants, the Kuchiki family and the Tsunayashiro family. Fighting. It's over. Inside Qianye Pavilion, the eyes of many girls were dull. Everything that just happened was like a fairy tale coming to light. One person and one sword can actually unleash such terrifying combat power, even captain-level combat power, under the sharp edge of the ultimate. It's like chopping melons and vegetables. In the hearts of the girls, a kind of joy of surviving the disaster emerged. Originally, everyone is desperate. How strong is Master Qianye? They were originally struggling to have enough to eat, but Qianye Pavilion gave them the opportunity to work and good treatment. With such a boss, everyone feels extremely lucky. Handsome and rich. High status. Still so powerful. It feels like a complete sense of security. 040. Be famous. Next moment, as Kuchiki Qianye walked lazily into Qianye Pavilion, it aroused a burst of cheers from the girls. Everyone gathered around him diligently, serving him wine, water, and fruits. Feijun opened her eyes wide and looked at Kuchiki Qianye among the flowers. Plaid shirt, a casual outfit, even after such a fierce battle just now. Even his hair was not messed up. No injuries were sustained. However, the physical exertion was too great, and I just sweated a little on my forehead. Master Qianye, thank you. Feijun and others bowed respectfully, their faces full of emotion. None of them knew Kuchiki Qianye and the series of struggles behind the Tsunayashiro family. Only know, if Kuchiki Qianye hadn't taken action, under that false tide, all of them would end up falling. But Kuchiki Qianye just waved his hand. No need to care. Then focus on the wine glass in your hand. I lazily enjoyed the girls singing and dancing. At the same time, a breeze blew, like a girl's caress, filled with the power of the Yin and Yang Wind spell. Take Qianye Pavilion as the origin. It continued to spread in the distance, penetrated into the Siriidii, and headed toward the residence of the Tsunayashiro family. He naturally heard the conversation between Yoruichi and everyone about the strongest shield, the existence of the Tsunayashiro family. It has seriously affected his daily life. The next day, the sky is bright. The entire Soul Society exploded. From the palace of the spiritual king to the common people and homeless people in the market, everyone was discussing yesterday's incident crazily. This level of shock is no less shocking than the replacement of Godiai, 13's captain, or big news like Central 46 members being murdered. Kuchiki Qianye. Last night, one person and one knife killed dozens of Minos Grande, 8 ajuches, 2 captains, and 5 vice captains. The most important is, he broke through the strongest shield that no one has ever broken through in Soul Society for thousands of years. Now, Kuchiki Qianye's fame has reached its peak. It has far exceeded the captain level, even chasing Captain Jinrasai Yamamoto. Building on the first genius of Soul Society, he has grown into one of the few strong men in Soul Society who has surpassed the captain level. Kuchiki family. From now on, the will of Kuchiki Qianye will be the will of my Kuchiki family. Kuchiki Yinling looked at the densely packed tribesmen gathered in the mansion and ordered with a serious look. The 4 nobles of Soul Society, in addition to social status and power in hand. In fact, the combat effectiveness is not outstanding, and it is far inferior to Godiai, 13, and Soul King Palace. Now, Kuchiki Qianye. He is the apparent strongest member of the Kuchiki family. After he retires, he will be the head of the Kuchiki family. Kuchiki Angshan and Byakuya Kuchiki on the side nodded their heads. Byakuya Kuchiki's face was blank. Everything last night had a terrible impact on him. Kuchiki Qianye's figure like a god of war prevented him from having any thoughts of confrontation in his heart. I want to practice diligently and surpass my brother's goal, but now I think it is so powerless. But that's his own brother. His strength is a great blessing to the Kuchiki family. Meanwhile, the Kuchiki family launches an all-out war against the Tsunayashiro family. Kuchiki Yinling's face was cold. Now, Kuchiki Qianye is the inverse scale and sweetheart of the Kuchiki family. Anyone who dares to offend will bear the wrath of the Kuchiki family. Godiai 13. Headquarters. Lord Captain. Kuchiki Qianye still refused the captaincy. Furthermore, Kuchiki Qianye has never left Qianye Pavilion during this period. He drinks, plays cards, and enjoys singing and dancing every day. Yamamoto Jinri Usai Shigekuni looked at the intelligence officer in front of him with helplessness in his eyes. He waved his hand. The intelligence officers retreated. Uno Hanaretsu, Kairaka Shunsui, and others on the side shook their heads slightly. After last night, the commander-in-chief, the importance he attaches to Kuchiki Qianye has been raised to a new level, and he really wants to let him join Godiai 13 now. But Kuchiki Qianye still refused completely on the grounds that he practiced martial arts. What is martial arts training? If you continue to practice, you may be able to challenge the entire Godiai 13 alone. I'm afraid that after joining Godiai 13, I won't have as much freedom as I do now, and I won't be able to let things happen. Island in the middle of the lake. Soul Society Authority within Central 46. They were discussing yesterday's situation. The Tsunayashiro family did not leave any clues, and they also claimed that the strongest shield was stolen by thieves. About the disposition of the Tsunayashiro family. In the 46th room, all the old-fashioned faces were gathered together. Conclusions are then drawn. Soul Society. Internal friction cannot be caused for no reason. The fall of a great noble will bring immeasurable losses. Next, about Kuchiki Qianye. In front of me, the video of Kuchiki Qianye's battle last night was played on a loop. A sword cuts through the sky and destroys the earth, No one can stop it. Such sharpness. It's even more terrifying than Ermiwa Wang Yu's sheath. Even if it's just Shirkai. It is also the most ultimate sharp power in the world. Everyone present was silent. The eyes are full of fire. This kind of power must be controlled by Central 46. 041. Yin and Yang Wind spell, double chanting. Tsunayashiro family. Qianye in the huge luxurious courtyard. Boom! Tsunayashiro's head smashed the teacup, his eyes were red, and his beard was jumping with anger. Hateful. This kind of fatal situation can be solved by him. 2 captains, 5 vice captains, plus various formations, trump cards, and the strongest shield specifically targeted at Kuchiki Qianye Zanpakutō. This is already the strongest power that the Tsunayashiro family can exert now. But now, all of them were lost in the battlefield. That Kuchiki Qianye, is he a monster? Master, the Kuchiki family has now launched a full-scale war against the Tsunayashiro family, and many of the family's industries have suffered a huge blow. Furthermore, members of the Tsunayashiro family are often assassinated in the outside world, and the core members have suffered heavy losses. Below, the intelligence officer knelt on one knee and spoke with a trembling tone. Tsunayashiro's head held his forehead, his body swayed, and his heart became a mess. Starting a war from the Kuchiki family, the first noble, is not a pleasant experience. But this loss is still within an acceptable level. As long as Central 46 keeps quiet and survives this time, the Tsunayashiro family will still be the 4 great nobles. The head of the Tsunayashiro family looked livid and gritted his teeth. The heritage of the 4 nobles. Unfathomable. All kinds of relationships are intertwined, and there is no way he will fall down so easily. Only, next moment, a gentle breeze caresses. It was pervasive and permeated the entire mansion. It's like a lover's whisper, making people feel extremely soft and comfortable. Tsunayashiro's residence. Everyone has 2 mysterious and complex curse seals with strange auras on their bodies, which are dazzling just by looking at them. Qianye Pavilion. Kuchiki Qianye was lying on the first sofa of Linlang Noble, his eyes slightly narrowed, and he was drinking scarlet wine in his mouth. In front of them, the young ladies were singing and dancing, very pleasing to the eye. At hand, there are also small game props such as playing cards, shogi, and go. When you get tired, you can play poker with the girls. But the technology in today's world is not yet developed. If you want to play computer games from previous lives, you'll have to wait for hundreds of years. Century. For Shinigami, who has a long life, it is just a blink of an eye. Ding. Host Qianye Pavilion is hungover. Enjoy dancing for a few days and play poker with the ladies to unlock the Sexual Mania achievement. Host had level break through to 90, unlock double chant. Had breaks through 90. Kuchiki Qianye bid farewell to the girls and came to the underground training ground. Raise your hand at will. A huge coffin, as black as ink, appeared on the scene, emitting overwhelming spiritual power. Wrap up a small hill. There was silence. After a while, black coffin disappears. The original hill has already turned into a pile of gravel. Had's 90 black coffin. In the original work, one of Aizen Suk's favorite kid. Enemies can be locked away, and thousands of shadow blades are emitted, used to stab the enemy. The power is also the most powerful among all the kid. Kuchiki Qianye nodded with satisfaction. Although Aizen can release black coffin without chanting, the power will be reduced by half. Only when chanted can the most complete black coffin be released. But products produced by the system must be high-quality products. Release black coffin yourself. Even if you don't chant, the power released will not be the same. Not to mention, the most important reward is the double chant. This is a form of release for kid. You can chant 2 kid at the same time and use them superimposed, which is equivalent to directly doubling your own kid's attack power. Good. Kuchiki Qianye nodded with satisfaction. Returning to Qianye Pavilion, there were immediately countless small nobles and family members coming to establish relationships. After all, who doesn't know now that the person with the most potential in Soul Society is Kuchiki Qianye. But Kuchiki Qianye turned those people away directly and only met with Godiai 13 and the intelligence officers of the Kuchiki family, all with letters. Regarding Mr. Yamamoto's solicitation, Kuchiki Qianye naturally refused directly. Joke, going to work as a captain? How can I be as free and comfortable as I am now? As for the family letters, Kuchiki Qianye took a look. The Kuchiki family and the Tsunayashiro family are at full-scale war. Central 46. Due to lack of evidence, they just sit back and stand on the sidelines, determined and muddy. The undercurrent of Soul Society is surging. Not long after, Kuchiki Qianye knows everything that happened in the past 2 days. But what does this have to do with him? Next moment, Kuchiki Qianye's mind sank. In the Siriidii in the distance, countless seals of the Yin and Yang Wind Curse appeared in his mind. As long as a member of the Tsunayashiro family comes into contact with the Heir, they will inevitably be entangled by the Yin and Yang Wind Curse. Now, the effect of the six-soul horror curse is doubled after double chanting. When the enemy uses spiritual power, he will suffer twice as much damage as the attack. The sleeping curse seal greatly improves the control effect. He can have complete control over anyone who is equal to Ryatsu, a combination of both. It is the strongest and weirdest assassination skill. 042. The Night of Genocide, the unjust case. Now, Tsunayashiro family, still busy and exhausted, dealing with the blow to the Kuchiki family. 2 curse seals are hidden in their bodies. No one noticed anything unusual. Next moment, as Kuchiki Qianye thought, the curse marks on everyone suddenly appeared. Then a strange light emitted. Everyone came to a sudden stop. The next moment, like a stiff corpse, he drew his knife and rushed towards the tribesmen around him. A shower of blood splashed. But the strange thing is that no one uttered a cry, and the entire mansion fell into silence and killing. The next day, Tsunayashiro's house was still quiet. A strong smell of blood filled the air. The Godiai 13 patrol officers went in to check, and their pupils suddenly contracted violently. Blood. Stumps. There were miserable corpses everywhere, and the entire Tsunayashiro family had been completely wiped out. Even Tsunayashiro Tokinada was stabbed to death on the hospital bed. Quick, go, and inform Godiai 13 Kid, Central 46. The patrol members panicked and rushed towards the Soul Society's power and violent institutions. Now, Kuchiki Qianye was drinking wine and eating delicious food with a satisfied look on his face. Tsunayashiro family. Although they're one of the 4 great nobles, their core clan members are not very powerful themselves. Ryatsu is far inferior to himself. By sealing the sleeping curse, you can completely control it. Solve them. No need to expend any effort. After they die, the curse marks on the body will also disappear, leaving no trace of death. Ding. Host drinks fine wine and communicates about life with the young ladies. Your Cade level breaks through to 90. You gain the ability High-Speed Regeneration. Cade and High-Speed Regeneration. Kuchiki Qianye looked at the space panel. High-Speed Regeneration is Hollow's ability. It can quickly recover body injuries. Even if you have a broken arm or leg, you can recover instantly. But even high-speed regeneration will not repair injuries to the brain or internal organs. But produced by the system, ignore this restriction. As long as he is not killed in an instant, all kinds of injuries can be repaired at the speed of a rocket. It can be said that you carry a top-notch big wet nurse with you, who can breastfeed yourself crazily all day long. Kuchiki Qianye took a sip of wine. Then, a long knife appeared and Tian Duan Wanxiang made a small cut on his arm. Next moment, Kuchiki Qianye's flesh and blood squirmed, but within a second, his arm returned to its original state. He nodded. High-speed regeneration is still very practical, but this is also the result of deliberately controlling the sharp energy of the world, with the sharpness of heaven that cuts through all things. If sharpness is left on the wound, even high-speed regeneration will be greatly limited or even impossible to repair. As for Cade, it can heal teammates. If Mr. Kuchiki Jinling, Sojin, Byakuya, and others are injured. Kate up to 90. It's better than going to the treatment team. Just when Kuchiki Qianye was in peace. At this time, Soul Society has exploded. The Tsunayashiro family was exterminated. The murderer is still unknown. I only know that their injuries were caused by cannibalism. Seirite. Everyone was whispering and discussing, and their hearts were filled with fear and uneasiness. I am afraid. Soul Society, an incredible strong man has appeared. The Grandmaster's hallucination ability destroyed one of the 4 nobles in one day. It's simply terrifying. The Tsunayashiro family is simply too large and outstanding, with influence throughout the Soul Society. News of being destroyed. In less than a day, it spread to the entire Suriidei and even Rukongai. Suddenly, Central 46 issued the highest order to search for the murderer in the entire Suriidei. People with hallucination abilities are the focus of investigation. Kid Public, Godei 13, Covert Action Team, the violent institutions of Soul Society all took action, and the entire Soul Society was in chaos. Now, Aizen Suk, who was confused, was taken into prison, and beside him was Soul Society 00, a master of various Grandmaster illusion abilities. Because of him before, Kaika Sujetsu, the ability to make enemies kill each other, is shown in the school. Therefore, it is even listed as a key concern. And Qianye Pavilion, still singing and dancing. The influence from the outside world has not spread here. After all, everyone knows that Grandmaster Kuchiki Qianye is a master of swordsmanship. His Zanpakutō is just extremely sharp and has no illusion ability. So far, Kuchiki Qianye enjoyed a peaceful and luxurious time. Time flies. Regarding the impact of the genocide of the Tsunayashiro family, silence has gradually subsided. Aizen Suk and others who were previously detained and had hallucination abilities were also released. After all, after investigation, Aizen's alibi and the effect of Kaika Sujetsu he deliberately displayed did not destroy the entire ability of Tsunayashiro. So, this incident became an unjust case. The history of entering Soul Society was recorded, and a strong man with such terrifying hallucination abilities disappeared from the future. Never appeared again. People returned to their peaceful lives. 043. Bankai, the Sharp Rule ability. Soul Society. Time flies. In the middle, the students of Spiritual Arts Academy graduated one after another. As the strongest student, Kuchiki Qianye was still absent from the graduation ceremony. A full 6 years. He hasn't even set foot in school, lying in the flower street, drunk and dreaming. But, even so, other students also showed great potential under the pressure of Kuchiki Qianye, the #1 genius. This is the most outstanding class of Spiritual Arts Academy. There are 3 captains, even better than those of Kyoraku Shunsui, and sure, you could take hundreds of years ago. Yuruchi, Urahara, Byakuya, Aizen, and others all enter Godei 13 and hold official positions. Shihoin Yuruchi served as the captain of the 2nd Division and the commander-in-chief of the Shing Army. After graduation, he showed great strength and was known as Flash Goddess Yuruchi. Urahara Kisuk. He served as the director of the 1st Generation Technology Development Bureau and the captain of the 12th Division, and was responsible for the development and improvement of the effect of the Igwe, as well as a variety of communication props, photo props, and all sorts of strange things. And Urahara Kisuk spends most of his time in his own research and development room, secretly collecting hollow souls and researching something unknown. Kuratsuchi Miyuri, the science madman, was also released because of his appreciation and served as the 3rd seat of the 12th Division. Deputy Director of the Technology Development Bureau. Byakuya Kuchiki. He also graduated from school successfully. Kuchiki Jinling and Kuchiki Sojin both stepped down from the 6th Division, after Kuchiki Qianye once again refused to serve as the 6th Division captain. Passes the captaincy to Byakuya Kuchiki. As for Aizen, he was recruited into the 5th Division by Hirako Shinji and served as the vice captain. Be humble and respectful. Among Godai 13, there's a high reputation and prestige. And the most outstanding student, Kuchiki Qianye, on the other hand, lives in debauchery and drunkenness every day while everyone looks at him with confusion and sighs. Not the hangover, just being a street kid in Suryaidei, living like an old man walking around. 50 years later, Kuchiki Qianye walked lazily on the street, heading towards the recently opened izakaya. The childishness on his face disappeared. Sharp edges and corners, eyes like stars. He has a tall and straight figure and a handsome face. Still wearing the familiar plaid shirt, he looked like a decadent young man. Not long after, the izakaya was crowded. This is also the Kuchiki family's property. Different from the flowers and soft jade in the flower house, the izakaya is more like a modern entertainment venue. Fine wine, singing, and dancing. There are even storytellers. It's lively and the atmosphere is great. Brother, if you continue like this, your talent will be ruined. A bass voice sounded. Kuchiki Qianye turned around and looked. A man wearing a white handcuff, whose appearance was 80% similar to Kuchiki Qianye, and who had a serious expression side. Kuchiki Sojin, captain of the 6th Division, usually has jurisdiction over the noble areas of the Suryaidei. After 50 years of practice, now Byakuya Kuchiki's strength has been greatly improved. He can already use Bankai proficiently, and he is also ranked among the top among the captains. Kuchiki Qianye just chuckled, disappeared in a flash, and appeared in the izakaya the next moment. This kind of shuinpa, Byakuya Kuchiki shook his head helplessly. He looked at his drunken brother in the izakaya with regretful eyes. Return from the lost path? I want to eat shit. My brother has not practiced for 50 years. But a skinny camel is bigger than a horse. He once asked Shihoin Yoruchi for Shuimpa's advice. Even Yoruchi, who was called Flash Goddess, Shuimpa's level was not at this level. Kuchiki Qianye, still the younger generation, the #1 genius. Now, inside the izakaya, Kuchiki Qianye was lying lazily on the huge sofa in the private room above, gently shaking the liquor brought from this world in his hand. With a tap of his finger, a sharp blade spread, the wine bottle was easily separated, and the sweet wine was poured out. In the body, the thick Ryatsu is like a river overturning and all beasts galloping. During 50 years, his Hagkade and Bakud are all 99. Master all of Kid perfectly. Take a look at the original work. Each captain is just a grandmaster, and even Aizen is just a few fixed kid of the grandmaster. Shuinpa. It is also a step forward on the basis of 100 steps per second and 100 meters per step. Can be stacked while moving. One step adds up to a distance of 200 meters, 300 meters, or even 1,000 meters. Total crushing Flash Goddess Yoruchi. White hits. It has also been raised to the captain limit. Ryatsu has been upgraded to level 60. More importantly, Zanpakutō, Tianjun Wangxiang also changed. It can be integrated into the body, turning the body into a sharp blade, and the sharpest sword energy can be released with a wave of the hand. A slash comparable to the original body of heavenly cutting all forms. But for Bankai, the true nature of Tianjun Wangxiang still needs to be revealed. As for its Bankai, the corners of Kuchiki Qianye's mouth raise slightly. Bankai's heavenly breaking power is 10,000 times more powerful. It doesn't just act on the physical level, but on the basis of sharpness. It has the rule ability of Sharpness system. 044. Visored, Aizen Conspiracy Rule System Zanpakutō. It is extremely buggy in the original work. You can use the rules to exert amazing lethality. For example, Kaiden Kaikatsu of Kaiaraka Shunsui can decide the outcome in a child's game. Shurkai is the ability to turn children's games into reality. Bankai, it is to realize the adult tragedy and reproduce the tragedy on the enemy. This ability, the battle in Karakura Town, the Invisible Empire chapter, and the Four Nobles chapter all had very outstanding performances. It is also an important reason why Kaiaraka Shunsui was able to assume the position of captain after the death of Mr. Yamamoto. And the same goes for Suifeng's Zanpakutō, Suzumabachi. Shurkai, Biwenhua, kills with 2 hits. Bankai, Jakarakeben, is a giant missile that kills with 1 hit. It stands to reason. Very outrageous ability. But the record in the original work is not high. After all, even with the rules-based ability, Ryatsu completely crushed his opponents. It will also lose most of its effectiveness. In my own Bankai, the corners of Kuchiki Qianye's mouth curled up slightly. It is a sharpness that transcends all limits and has reached the level of rules. It can cut off distance, cut off memory, cut off all power. Even Aizen's Kaika Suigetsu will not have the slightest impact on him, because the sky breaks all things and can easily cut off the connection between himself and Kaika Suigetsu. Recently, the Shinigami of Rakangai have disappeared more and more frequently. But in the past 10 years, thousands of talents who were expected to become elite Shinigami disappeared. In Izakaya, people drank a little wine and looked worried. Although Tsurayashiro is relatively safe, this is not absolute. No one knows. Could the next missing Shinigami be me? Even the captain of Division 9, Mugiuruma Kensei, who went to investigate, and his adjutant Kunimashiro are missing. The Godi I-13 and Kid have sent a large number of combat forces to continue the investigation. We should wait for news. It's been really uneasy recently. The Tsunayashiro family was exterminated decades ago, and now such a bad incident has happened again. Discussion of people's concerns. Now, the entire Soul Society. There's a tremor everywhere, and everyone is in danger. Above, in the box, Kuchiki Qianye took a sip of wine and narrowed his eyes. Now, Aizen, Urahara, and others are already making moves around Byakuya. This is also the biggest climax in the early and middle stages of the plot. Aizen's rebellion plot. At first, when Aizen goes to Hueco Mundo, the hair gel hand changes the hairstyle, and the classic quote, "I will stand in the sky." Really impressive. Compared to Aizen, the quality of the protagonist group is not even the slightest bit off. Meow. A cat meow sounded at Kuchiki Qianye's feet, and a petite and cute black cat circled around his trousers. Kuchiki Qianye was as fast as lightning, pinched the back of the neck and lifted it up. Put in your arms and pet the cat. Recent, Shihoin Ruchi likes to live in this black cat form more and more. The two looked at each other. Shihoin Yuruchi has a black line on his face. This Kuchiki Qianye's hand speed is too fast. Even she, who is called the Flash Goddess, cannot escape. But she came here for business this time. Qianye, something big happened. The black cat broke free from Qianye's clutches and spoke human words, a cat's face full of seriousness. Not long after, secret underground base. This is the place where Kuchiki Qianye, Yuruchi, and Urahara gather in recent years. It is also the place where Yuruchi and Urahara hone their strength. It is completely empty, covering an extremely vast area with various hills, cliffs, and other terrains, among which you can also see traces of training such as knife marks. Before, Urahara once learned Bankai here, using extremely harsh methods. Later, among the protagonists, Kurosaki Ichigo learned Bankai in 3 days and also followed Urahara's training method. Urahara, who had been waiting for a long time, was still dressed in the familiar clog hat, and his eyes lit up when he saw Kuchiki Qianye walking towards him. "Brother Qianye," Urahara waved from afar with an attentive look on his face. "What's the matter? Just tell me." Kuchiki Qianye yawned. In aristocratic circles. In other words, Urahara and Yuruchi, peers, are closest to Kuchiki Qianye. The situation is urgent. Aizen, there is a huge conspiracy. Furthermore, Hirako Shinji and others have been listed as virtual by Central 46. Urahara and Yuruchi, who had long since returned to human form, looked serious. After a while, Urahara narrates the story clearly. Godiai 13 and the reinforcements sent by Kid to investigate the disappearance of Rakangai Shinigami all fell into Aizen's conspiracy. Captain of Division 5, Hirako Shinji. Captain of Division 9, Mugiuruma Kensei. Captain of Division 7, Love Aikawa. Captain of the 3rd Division, Torabashi, RJR. Deputy Captain of Division 9, Kunamashiro. Vice Captain of Division 8, Yadumaru Lisa. Deputy Captain of Division 12, Saragaki Hiyori. Kid Deputy Chief Kid, Hachijin. A total of 4 captains. The rest are also captain level in strength. This is the power of half a Godii 13. They were all defeated in Rakangai. Everyone, all irreversibly hollowed. A hollow bone mask appeared on his face. Actually, the Shinigami who disappeared from Soul Society were all murdered by Aizen. But the staid and decadent Central 46 didn't investigate clearly at all. Just give Hirako Shinji and others a serious crime. Decided to execute several people in the name of annihilating Sue, and put the blame for Shinigami's disappearance on them. 045. Captain 13, half lost. Brother Qianye, come with us and rescue them. Urahara Keisuke and Shihoin Yaruchi gritted their teeth and looked at Kuchiki Qianye. They have made up their minds. After all, as a colleague, these people have a good relationship with them, and they cannot just watch their former colleagues die unjustly. And Kuchiki Qianye is the most powerful among them. With his help, the rescue success rate will also be greatly improved. Hear all this. Kuchiki Qianye yawned. Just like in the original work, Aizen and Urahara have carried out Hijayaku's experiments, and it has achieved certain results. In the future, they will form members of the Masked Legion, all neat and tidy, calculated by Aizen Hollow. But Urahara Keisuke, I didn't tell myself the news about Hijayaku just now. After all, it was a power beyond his control. And he himself, he also wanted to destroy Hijayaku, but unfortunately he couldn't succeed and could only seal it in Rukia's body. And later, a series of strategies were set up to let Rukia walk around the world with righteous bones, hoping to completely transform it into a human being, then destroy Hijayaku completely. Pity. In the end, it failed, and Hijayaku was taken away by Aizen, who merged the 2 imperfect Hijayaku into a perfect Hijayaku. This is also the difference between Aizen and Urahara. When Urahara learned that Soul Society's true history was relying on the Soul King, she chose to be loyal to the Soul King. Therefore, things beyond control like Hijayaku are directly destroyed. And Aizen, after learning the true history of Soul Society, he chose to destroy the Soul King, become the only one in heaven and earth, and create a brand new world. So, he became obsessed with Hijayaku's power and conducted a series of experiments. It can be said, the different choices will lead to completely different life developments for the two, if Urahara also chooses to destroy the Soul King. Then, he can definitely become the second Aizen Suk, have the power to constantly push limits. Not long after, underground training ground, Urahara Keisuke and Shihoin Yaruchi looked at Kuchiki Qianye's leaving figure and sighed softly. It's understandable that my eldest brother refused. After all, he just wants to live a quiet life. What's more, Captain Hirako and others have nothing to do with Brother Qianye. Their friendship is just acquaintance. It's natural not to take action. Urahara Keisuke and Shihoin Yaruchi shook their heads. In this case, let's act on our own. Our strength alone is enough. Now, inside Qianye Pavilion, Kuchiki Qianye was lying lazily on the sofa. His eyes narrowed slightly. The refusal just now was straightforward. If it is Byakuya, Yaruchi, Urahara, etc., it is normal for someone close to them to be hurt and take action themselves. But I am not familiar with Hirako Shinji and others at all, and I don't have much interaction with him. So why should I save him? Anyway, the power of Yaruchi and Urahara is enough. Yaruchi Shuunpa is extremely high level, and he can still run away if he can't beat him. And Urahara, it can be said that he is one of the most hidden characters in the original work. In the early stage, they relied on strategies and fished in the water. Even in the Karakura town battle, and against Aizen who was fused with Jayaku, he failed to force out his Bankai. His combat prowess must not be ignored just because of his IQ. Not to mention, even if they were expelled from Soul Society and labeled as traitors, it would still be an opportunity for them to grow. As for the great traitor Aizen, is his existence really a danger to Soul Society? To know, today's Soul Society is content with the status quo and rotten. Central 46 has caused countless people to complain. Even Captain Yamamoto. They have all lost the vigor of their youth and have acquired the bad habits of old men with old-fashioned ideas. And Aizen's appearance and defection. Although the power of Soul Society suffered a loss. However, it united the entire Soul Society, and people's mental outlook also took on a new look. Being prepared for danger in times of peace, the captains of Soul Society no longer fish for fish and swim in water, and their strength has been transformed. It can be said, Aizen, it was the catfish and the catfish effect that gave Soul Society new life. Think of this. Kuchiki Qianye shook his head slightly and continued to enjoy singing and dancing and drinking for fun. As long as Aizen develops. If it doesn't affect you, then let him do whatever he wants. I'm just a salty fish who just lies back and fishes, enjoys life, and becomes invincible while drinking wine. A few days later, Soul Society, something great has happened, comparable to a magnitude 8 earthquake. The entire Suryaidai was shaken by this. Everyone is rushing to run. People are panicked. Godai 13. 2nd Division Captain Shihoin Yuruchi. Urahara Kisuk, Captain of Division 12 and Director of the Technology Development Bureau. He rescued Hirako Shinji and other traitors and fled to the present world. Just a few days. Godai 13, just the captain level, lost 6 people. Number of captains, directly reduced by half. This is an extremely heavy blow to the entire Godai 13. It also greatly weakens the overall strength of Soul Society. 046, he gave too much. Now, Godai 13, there was silence, as if a dull cloud had enveloped the place, and people felt extremely depressed. In the conference room, Yamamoto Genrisai was leaning on a cane, with a serious face and a stooped figure. His old and sharp eyes scanned the people below. Everyone doubts life. In just a few days, the captain and former colleagues have lost half of their former colleagues. Now, captain level, only Unohana Retsu, Kairaku, Shunsui, Shiryukatake, Zaraki Kenpachi, Byakuya Kuchiki, and Shiba are left. Now, the most urgent moment has arrived. Godai 13. There's an urgent need for fresh blood. Concerning the captain duties of Urahara, Yuruchi, Hirako Shinji, and others, priority will be given to selecting among the adjutants. The team that the vice captain also fled will be led by Seat 3. Yamamoto Genrisai looked expressionless, deciding on his future promotion to official positions, and raised his head slightly at the same time. He looked at the sky outside the window and squinted his eyes. 50 years. Kuchiki Qianye, haven't you rested enough? Below. All the captains nodded. Even the most arrogant Kenpachi calmed down at this moment. If you have suitable candidates, you can also recommend them. Meeting dismissed. Yamamoto Genryusai Shigekuni said softly. Then he walked out of the headquarters with a cane and headed straight towards Qianye Pavilion. Not long after, in front of Qianye Pavilion, Captain Yamamoto was wearing an ordinary old man's clothes, leaning on a cane, and looking at the Yin Yang in front of him, frowning slightly. Intelligence officer's description, Kuchiki Qianye is here now. Subsequently, he stepped in with difficulty. Above, Kuchiki Qianye was drinking and saw an old man with an X-shaped scar on his head and a snow-white beard, and an interested smile appeared on his lips. Mr. Yamamoto, come to a place like this? Send 2 girls to entertain us. When Yamamoto Genryusai Shigekuni left, his legs were shaking a little and his beard was standing up. This Kuchiki Qianye, if it weren't for his talent, he would have just pulled out Raijin Jaka. Thinking of the price just discussed with Kuchiki Qianye. Even the old man felt extremely heartbroken. But being able to win over Kuchiki Qianye will make everything worthwhile. Kuchiki Qianye, on the other hand, was staring at the old man's back, holding a jet black token with gold rim in his hand. There is nothing on the token. This is the captain's token of Godai 13. He can be the captain of any division if he wants. Originally, he refused, but no matter what, the conditions offered by the old man were really too tempting. First, he only serves as the captain and has the right to refuse all orders, and his daily work is done by his adjutant. But he is still the highest officer of a certain squad and can command and mobilize all combat power within the squad. And, after discussions between the old man and Central 46, the area previously occupied by the Tsunayashiro family was divided for himself. Although the wealth of the Tsunayashiro family was divided among the remaining 3 nobles and the upper-class nobles after their demise. But in an aristocratic area where every inch of land is at a premium, even the Tsunayashiro family's mansion is a staggering amount of wealth. You really spend a lot of money. Kuchiki Qianye's lips curled up slightly. "Own, I just paid for the title of captain. No one cares about me on weekdays. I don't need to deal with official duties. I can still drink and have fun at will." But for no reason, he obtained the combat power of an entire division, as well as the Tsunayashiro family's mansion worth tens of thousands of gold. Good. Very nice. Kuchiki Qianye was relieved, so he changed his position and continued to lie down. "Tomorrow, it was the day when I was the captain. You can choose a squad to take over." The next day, Godai 13, headquarters. A drunken, shaky figure walked in swaggeringly, wearing a gold-trimmed shirt, holding a bottle of liquor in his hand. He had a drunken and lazy look on his face. Kuchiki Qianye, Godai 13. Countless team members recognized this figure. Before, one person killed dozens of Minos Grande, as well as 2 captain-level combatants and Soul Society's strongest shield, known as the #1 genius in Soul Society. Kuchiki Qianye possesses the strongest Zanpakutō in the sharp element and can break all things. Even though he just looked like a drunk, but no one dared to look down upon him and looked at him with awe. Go, went and informed the captain. Captain. Not long after, Kuchiki Qianye was received by Uno Hanaretsu and arrived at the captain's conference room. Yamamoto Jinri Usai, Shigekuni, sat high at the head. And below, there the 6 captains lined up in sequence. Captain of the 4th Division, Uno Hanaretsu. Captain of the 6th Division, Byakuya Kuchiki. Captain of the 10th Division, Isshin Shiba. Captain of Division 8, Kairaku Shunsui. Captain of Squad 11, Zaraki Kenpachi. Captain of Division 12, Shur Yukitake. Originally, except for the chief captain, half of the 12 captain seats were vacant. Now, the only 6 remaining captains. They all looked at Kuchiki Qianye with different expressions. Byakuya Kuchiki looked at the drunken Qianye and other people with a straight face, and the corners of his mouth twitched slightly. Uno Hanaretsu smiled slightly. Kairaku Shunsui had a salty expression on his face, and Zaraki Kenpachi grinned with fighting intent. 047. Choose Kuchiki Qianye. Choose, above. Yamamoto Jinrisai coughed slightly and stared closely at the shapeless Kuchiki Qianye below. Hear this. The other captains looked solemn. To know, Kuchiki Qianye's treatment is unmatched by anyone, and he can freely choose his team. This means other captains are also at risk of being laid off. If Kuchiki Qianye chooses their division, they will have to be demoted to deputy captain or be transferred to another squadron. Be Kuchiki Qianye's vice captain? Think of this. Everyone's heart tightened. Let's not talk about anything else for the moment. Soul Society is famous for Kuchiki Qianye's salted fish, which means that he is not only the vice captain, but also the captain. They all have to help Kuchiki Qianye finish it. This is simply worse than death. Never choose your own squad. All the captains prayed secretly in their hearts, under everyone's gaze. Kuchiki Qianye just yawned. Out of the corner of his eye, he glanced at the rough-looking man among the captains. Shiba is one heart, captain of the 10th Division, the head of the Shiba family branch house. Later, in order to save the dying Kurosaki Masaki, he voluntarily gave up the power of the captain-level Shinigami. He turned into a normal person, married Kurosaki Masaki, had children, and opened a small medical clinic in the real world. And, renamed Kurosaki Isshin, she gave birth to 3 children: Kurosaki Ichigo, Kurosaki Yuzu, and Kurosaki Natsuri, and Kurosaki Ichigo. That is, decades later, the protagonist of the original work. But he is not married and has children yet. It is different from the greasy uncle image in the original work. At this time, Isshin had thin cheeks and no beard, so he was considered a tough-looking man. Sensing Kuchiki Qianye's gaze, Shiba's back felt cold, and he quickly showed a harmless smile. Afraid of being noticed by him, Kuchiki Qianye looked away, looking at the vacant seats. Godei 13. Each team has different responsibilities. The first team, the main team, has the strongest combat power. The second division, the covert mobile team, is responsible for assassinations and intelligence. The third division, the support team, goes to support when other divisions are short of manpower. Division 4, medical rescue team. Division 5, the rescue team, is responsible for the rescue of living Shinigami. Kuchiki Qianye took a sip of wine. Several squads. Each has its own pros and cons, but I don't need to think about this. I just need to leave the matter to the adjutant. Be a hands-off shopkeeper and enjoy life. So, want to achieve all this. A capable vice captain is needed. He also has strong intelligence capabilities. After all, wherever there is fun, intelligence is needed. Even though I am the heir to the Kuchiki family, it is also impossible to understand the entire Soul Society and the information in this world in detail. And the second team, responsible for Soul Society intelligence collection and assassination. His combat power is also at the forefront among the 13 teams. And the captain of the second division in the original work, Suifeng, is extremely capable. Unlike Ranjaku, who only knows how to fish and hand over information to Hitsugaya Chur, Suifeng can handle everything perfectly. And Suifeng's own strength. White hits and Shuinpa are as good as Yoruchi and have the rule system Zanpakutō Suzumabachi. It's a level higher than a unit of measurement of combat power like Muguruma Kensei. If she encounters a situation in the future, she will be able to solve it by herself, and there is no need for her to step forward. It can be said, he is the best deputy candidate. Second division. Kuchiki Qianye said softly. Above, Yamamoto Jinrosai nodded slightly and took Kuchiki Qianye's token. A big 2 character was engraved on it. This is the captain's token of the second division, which represents the highest power to control the second division. The other captains also breathed a sigh of relief, watching Kuchiki Qianye turn around and leave, heading to the second division station. I secretly offer incense to Suifeng in my heart. That little girl who worked hard will be in bad luck in the future. The captains shook their heads. Suifeng often followed Yoruchi before, so they all knew each other, and they were full of sympathy for Suifeng at the moment. Hopefully, she can withstand the ravages of Kuchiki Qianye. Vice Captain, you haven't left your room for 3 days, and your health is in critical condition. The new captain has arrived, and our entire team must go to greet him. Second Division Station. Outside the door, a fat man with a sinewy face, thick lips, and a burly build knocked on the door. Omida Marekio looked worried. The next moment, the door opened with a squeak sound, and Suifeng walked out with a haggard look and big dark circles under his eyes. Let's go. Suifeng's voice was hoarse. Not long after, inside the second team's dojo, it was densely packed and crowded. Some of them were dressed in jet-black Deathlord outfits, carrying Zanpakutō on their waists. The other part is covered with a black scarf and has sharp eyes, like an ancient ninja. They are all members of the second team, belong to different departments. Above, he is our new captain, Master Kuchiki Qianye. Omida Marekio breathed out, and Suifeng also raised his head and looked at the swaying young man above, smelling of alcohol. He didn't even wear a tyrannical suit. He was dressed in casual clothes, like a rich young man out for fun. Can such a person really be qualified to be the captain? Kuchiki Qianye. Although he is the #1 genius in Soul Society, it seems too unreliable. 048. If you think so, I will put a burden on you. In the dojo, everyone was talking about it. His eyes were full of confusion, but out of respect for the captain, he did not question it in person. He might know something. Suifeng's lips were pale, and her face was haggard. Yuruchi's departure made her mentally shattered and unbelievable. Yuruchi, abandoned yourself. As Yuruchi's friend, Kuchiki Qianye may know the reason why she abandoned him. Think of this. Suifeng stepped forward and walked towards Kuchiki Qianye. Kuchiki Qianye just took a sip of wine and didn't care. He looked lazily at his subordinates below. Come here this time. Just explain the future operations and distribute the power within the team. Then, you could be a hands-off shopkeeper. Personally manage an entire squad? Absolutely impossible. Go to I-13. Each team is divided into 10 to 20 classes, with more than 10 people in each class. And the second team, bringing the Xing army, the covert mobile team, and the intelligence organization together consumes even more manpower. All 20 classes are full. There are 20 people in each class, which adds up to 400 people. And the combat power of each team member has reached the elite Shinigami level. Managing so many people takes a terrible amount of energy. This is just the official preparer. The intelligence network that spreads throughout Seoul society and penetrates into the real world contains even more manpower. This is an extremely powerful force. Compare this. The other divisions are all about the same strength, except for the 4th division. Each division has a large number of elite Shinigami combat capabilities. In the original work, the advantage of the Kuchiki family compared to other families is that a hereditary captain of the 6th division is enough to make the Kuchiki family the head of the 4 nobles. Captain Qianye, about Yuruchi, a hoarse female voice sounded. Kuchiki Qianye turned around and saw a girl with purple and black bangs, a petite and unremarkable figure, but a very cute appearance. But she was now in a depressed mood. Her lips were pale.
No more novels? Take part in the voting. The most requested novels and those with the most likes will be chosen for publication on euroaudiobooks.com. There, I can upload as much as I want without the risk of receiving a strike. Our 18 novels and other content that exceed what is morally acceptable are only published on Patreon or the free novels page. Remember, the site is funded by donations on Ko-fi and Patreon memberships.